Bună dimineața! Hello, good morning! Bine ați venit la cea de-a 7-a ediție a conferinței anuale a operatorilor de telecomunicații din România, RONOG. Eveniment susținut de mai multe asociații și de asociația Interlan, pe care o reprezint. For translation, you can use the headphones. We have simultaneous translation from Romanian to English and vice versa. So if you need, you can find the headphones in the back side. Câteva reguli de housekeeping. O să începem cu prezentarea acestor reguli. Acest eveniment este înregistrat. Dacă nu doriți să apăreți în materialele care vor fi publicate, pentru că se fac poze pe aici, puteți să informați registration și vom avea grijă să nu apăreți în poze. Vă rugăm să puneți telefoanele în modul silent în acest moment, dacă se poate, ca să nu avem întreruperi pe parcursul discuțiilor. Și în momentul în care veți pune întrebări, dacă doriți să puneți întrebări, veți primi un microfon pentru cei care prezintă și o să vă rugăm să vă spuneți numele și organizația pe care o reprezentați. De asemenea, dacă aveți orice problemă legată de organizare, puteți discuta cu colegele noastre care au bandă roșie la gât. O să vă spun câteva cuvinte despre edițiile anterioare ale RONOG. Prima ediție am început în anul 2014. A fost ca urmare a primului eveniment internațional pe care l-am avut în România din domeniul operatorilor și rețelelor și internet exchange-urilor. Am găzduit în acel an primul forum ROX care a fost ținut în România. Iar după acest forum, ROX este organizația internet exchange-urilor din Europa. După acest eveniment am avut și prima ediție a RONOG cu susținerea organizației ROX, bineînțeles. A doua ediție a fost în anul următor, în 2015. Am avut în jur de 150 de participanți și, bineînțeles, subiecte foarte interesante. Nu o să intru acum în detalii plictisitoare. Următoarea ediție a fost în anul 2016. Atunci am avut și o colaborare cu Internet Society. Am avut un ION meeting împreună cu ediția RONOG. Din anul 2017 am avut și cursuri organizate de RIPE NCC pentru formare în domeniul resurselor IP. În anul 2018, cea de-a 5-a ediție a avut aproape 200 de invitați și o grămadă de subiecte interesante și, bineînțeles, acele cursuri RIPE. Iar ultima ediție a fost ținută în anul 2019, după care, bineînțeles, a venit pandemia și am luat o pauză. Nu am vrut să ținem evenimentul online pentru că ni se pare foarte interesant ca lumea să vină și să participe fizic și să poată să discute, să interacționeze direct. De aceea am preferat nu au mai fost condiții pentru participare fizică și, cum spuneam, online nu era de dorit și am ales să facem acum în acest an, pentru prima oară după o pauză de 2 ani. Programul acestei ediții este asigurat de către un grup de voluntari care se numesc Comitetul de Program. Ei sunt cei care sunt aici pe ecran, sunt cei care au selectat prezentările și au făcut în așa fel încât programul să fie cât mai interesant. Agenda de azi are 4 sesiuni plenare. Această sesiune plenară de deschidere, după care vom avea o pauză de cafea, după care vom avea o pauză, a doua sesiune, după pauza de cafea la ora 11, la ora 13 avem pauza de masă, după care începem din nou cu o sesiune, o pauză de cafea scurtă și ultima sesiune va fi până la ora 17:15, după care vom avea un concurs care va conține întrebări din conținutul acestui eveniment. Deci dacă cine este atent și participă la concursul Kahoot, care va avea loc la sfârșitul evenimentului, are șansa să câștige un premiu, care este pe site acolo. O trotinetă electrică. Există mai multe resurse pe web despre RONOG. Ne găsiți pe site-ul oficial, ronog.ro, ne găsiți pe Facebook, avem un grup de LinkedIn, suntem și pe Twitter, există și un canal de YouTube care în momentul acesta transmite live și, bineînțeles, și pe Facebook și, de asemenea, și pe Wikipedia. Și acest eveniment, evident că nu s-ar fi desfășurat fără susținerea din partea sponsorilor noștri, Telegroup, Modern TV, Amazon Web Services, Internet System Consortium, Asociația Operatorilor de Telecomunicații din România, Unix Data, Internet Society, RIPE NCC, DCN Europe, Salumanus, Bitway Telecom și CH Root. Și de asemenea am avut sponsor pentru diverse evenimente secundare din cadrul evenimentului nostru mare de azi. Peering Social and Barista sponsor Flex Optics, Launch Networking sponsor ProHuman, Digital Visibility and Internet Connectivity sponsor Viva Telecom, Supporting sponsor Microtic și, de asemenea, am avut susținerea din partea comunităților din care facem parte, EuroX și, de asemenea, Serviciul de Telecomunicații Speciale ne-a ajutat cu acest eveniment. Partener media, Softlead, Ziarul Pozitiv, Biz, AG Press și Media Express. Le mulțumim pentru participare și pentru susținere. Și, de asemenea, gazda acestui eveniment, Asociația Interlan, Interlan Internet Exchange. Mulțumim, deci, sponsorilor și cred că putem începe. O să îl invit pe colegul nostru, Alexandru Rotaru, să deschidă prima sesiune de discuții.
Poți să intri la mine.
Întâi prezint și după aia.
Da, prezintul nou. Fac o introducere și chiar pe el. Nu o să o gândesc.
Asta? Sau asta?
Da, două ca aia cu imagine.
Asta un pic.
Da, lasă-o așa.
Descurci.
Da, slideshow. Slideshow. Ok, merge așa și așa. Perfect.
Asta țin, dacă îi dai așa.
Full screen. Lasă-o așa.
Am vizualizare.
Ia urmărești.
Așa.
Ok. Deci perioada la care vreau să mă refer, în anul acesta, în anul 1992, astăzi, 2022, se împlinesc 30 de ani de când am fondat Asociația de Unix din România. Se numește Grupul Utilizatorilor Români de Unix, s-a numit în felul acesta și a fost fondată în aprilie 1992. Denumirea era GURU, Grupul Utilizatorilor Români de Unix, și momentul în care am făcut această introducere a asociației, adică această înregistrare a asociației, a fost determinat de o frustrare pe care o aveam câțiva dintre noi, care lucrasem în cercetare, dezvoltare de aplicații și așa mai departe, și care practic regăseam în România o lume plină de calculatoare DEC, digital, PDP, RSX, VMS și alte sisteme de operare. Bine, la începutul anilor 90 deja apăruseră IBM PC-urile, adică pe scară largă și... În fine, deci prezentarea mea, care o să o găsiți în filesurile conferinței RONOG, se referă la toată perioada, început din 81 până în 99 și practic insist asupra influenței Unix-ului, asupra apariției internetului și a dezvoltării ulterioare pe scară largă a internetului. De ce acest lucru? De ce am ales acest titlu? Pentru că consider că sunt 3 etape până la pornirea efectivă a internetului în România, așa, mă rog, până la etapa în care ne aflăm și în ziua de astăzi. Deci perioada anterioară a anilor 89, putem vorbi despre o țară care nu avea nicio placă de rețea, nu exista nicio conectivitate, conectivitate zero. În schimb, erau Unix-uri pe aici pe acolo, adică eu, de exemplu, am intrat în contact cu, adică am primit banda de la AT&T Bell Labs cu următorul text. We are Brian Kernighan, Dennis Ritchie, Rob Pike and David Korn. Don't try to reach us, just read the manuals and use that. Și am luat acea bandă, am instalat-o pe un calculator românesc și am putut să lucrăm cu simulatorul care altfel se oprea, în fine. Deci o foloseam pentru programele sau proiectele care le făceam noi în momentul ăla. A doua etapă este etapa email dial-up, care este perioada 90-92, să zic, din punct de vedere al comunicației. Atunci, pe aici erau un număr foarte mare de sisteme de operare diferite și sisteme de rețele diferite. De exemplu, Xerox funcționa cu Benion Vines, IBM funcționa cu niște protocoale SNA 2780, 3750, TCP/IP-ul era pe aici pe acolo. Văzând că vechile proiecte nu mai sunt finanțate și că 95% din colegii mei au plecat din România, m-am apucat și am cărat toate calculatoarele într-o sală, unde lucram eu la IRUC, și am făcut următoarea rețea, un server SCO Unix, care era legat în rețea locală în 91 cu un cluster CITOS de la Boros-Perry. Acela era legat cu serială la procesorul de comerț indirectă de la RSX. Din acesta exista un list server și list serverul acela transmitea joburi într-o rețea novel, unde funcționa un program, unde funcționau multe programe ale firmei unde lucram eu. Și în felul ăsta am făcut un arbore uriaș dial-up în firma respectivă. Firma se numea IRUC și avea puncte de lucru în toată țara. Și am organizat acel arbore cu UCP și cu cronul din Unix, astfel încât să pot transmite joburi permanent de contabilitate și de gestiune. Firma asta avea 60% din rezerva națională a României de componente electronice, deci acolo erau câteva piese. Și din cauza asta tot timpul se făceau accese în baza de date și se mai lucra și celelalte programe de care știți toți din perioada aia, care erau pentru salarii, contabilitate. Dacă era un oraș botoșeanu, de exemplu, trimitea un e-mail cu attachment job de Fox Pro către Iași, prin dial-up, Iașiul trimitea către București, intra în rețeaua locală, list serverul transforma într-un query SQL, după aceea răspunsul se atașa la mail și se transmitea înapoi la Iași Botoșani. Noi, ca să vedem că rețeaua asta funcționează, se suna defazat cu ceasurile, atașam la mail-uri niște task-uri care ne dădeau starea fiecărui calculator din arborele respectiv. Și asta permanent. Deci era un pic de aiureală și conectivitatea la internet nu exista. Singurul loc unde am avut adresă de internet, adresă de e-mail, de fapt, era în facultate, la calculatoare, la automatică, unde aveam o adresă de tipul aro.p.darmstadt.de, adică Germania. Pentru că toată rețeaua de la Politehnică era conectată cu cablu galben, yellow cable, erau online facultățile, în schimb, conectarea internațională se făcea o dată pe zi. Se sula 090, se cerea ton de Darmstadt, Nini Popovici, administratorul rețelei Politehnicii, punea modelurile cap în cap, se auzea un țiuit straniu, putea să rateze, dacă trecea, se duceau 1000 de mail-uri încolo și 1000 de mail-uri încoace. Unul din mail-urile astea a venit de la Antoni Rutkovski, care în anul 1992 tocmai fonda o asociație numită Interlan Association. El m-a întrebat cum ați făcut voi să porniți Guru, eu l-am întrebat cum faceți voi acolo să porniți Internet Society Și ne-am înțeles, adică noi am căpătat camera 101 de la Institutul de Matematică, care a zis că asta e o cameră unde puteți declara sediu, că alături e o sală unde vă puteți întâlni și mai discutați una alta. Și eu i-am spus, voi n-aveți o clădire acolo la ba da, avem o clădire dezafectată la Reston, aici a Sprintului. O să o punem pe asta ca sediu și fondăm Interlan Society. Și s-a fondat în 1992. Deci acum sunt 30 de ani de la fondarea lui Interlan Society, 30 de ani de când am fondat noi Asociația de Unix. E o coincidență? Poate. Ideea e că imediat după fondare am intrat ca membri afiliați în European. European era federația grupurilor de Unix din Europa și aceasta deținea o rețea parțial IP, parțial dial-up, numită EUNet. Atunci am hotărât să participăm, ne-am dus cu greu, am ajuns la Utrecht la o mare întâlnire care era organizată de Unix, Uniforum și European, în care cei din Moscone Center, Unix este o asociație de Unix din America care a vrut să se numească Unix, însă AT&T nu le-a dat voie să folosească această denumire. Și atunci se numește Association for Advanced Computing. Dar ea este, de fapt, Unix și ea mai există în ziua de astăzi. Grupurile de Unix din Europa au mai rămas puține, în fine. În perioada imediat următoare, când am ajuns la Utrecht, de fapt, în prima clipă, cei de la Unix ne-au făcut cunoștință cu niște persoane care erau pe acolo, Larry Ellison, de exemplu, de la Oracle. Am discutat cu el și am zis, ce faceți aici? De ce ascultați Charlie Parker? Era vorba de jazz. Și zice, dragă domnule, noi avem o bază de date, se numește Oracle 6. Asta vom ține încă 20 de ani, dar o vom vinde sub diverse denumiri. Tu ai auzit de IBM? Mă întreabă, da. Știi că ei fac un mainframe. Noi ignorăm chestia asta. Noi o să facem o chestie care se numește grid. Și peste vreo 15 ani, Larry Ellison prezenta grid-ul. O altă echipă cu care m-am întâlnit a fost, pe vremea aceea existau mari probleme cu compatibilizarea Unix-urilor, adică hai să facem portabilitate între platforme și exista un grup care se ocupa de standardele X-Open, condus de Steve Wally. Aceștia mi-au spus așa, uite, noi lucrăm din când în când la Microsoft, dar în 6 luni odată ei ne dau afară, pentru că scriem clone de Unix peste Windows. Și mi-au dat cadou un kit numit Motrice Kern Systems Unix, care l-am și acum, e foarte bun. Adică pornea acel kernel, ei tocmai fusese rădați afară de la Microsoft. Și au zis așa, dacă voi faceți o conferință în România, venim și noi acolo, trimitem unul dintre noi că poate o să iasă ceva. Și în sfârșit, al treilea moment la 92, ca asta vreau să vă zic, a fost apariția lui EUNet Europe. Adică predecesorul GTS Telecom, strămoșul GTS Telecom. Și l-avem aici pe colegul meu, Liviu Ionescu, care a fost cel care a fondat EUNet România. O să discutăm imediat, o să invit și pe el. Acest moment cu EUNet Europe era foarte interesant, adică toate universitățile decanii universităților din Europa, de la Pisa, de la Paris Sud, cei de la Amsterdam, spuneau, domnule, oamenii ăștia cu Unix au băgat niște servere la noi în decanate, așa, și ăștia ne fac să plătim facturi uriașe la Telecom, la acei monopoliști, la telecomurile Telecom, KPN, France Telecom și așa mai departe. Cum scăpăm de asta? Și în sală se auzea așa un murmur. Păi vom vinde rețeaua asta, ba nu, o să o păstrăm, rămânem acționari, dar asta sigur o să dea faliment. Cât să riscăm? Să riscăm 18%. Eu n-aveam voie să zic nimic pentru că eram de-abia începător acolo, adică eram junior member, adică nu eram membru cu putere de vot. Și da, hai să facem așa, 18% este ok. Și au rămas grupurile de Unix acționari la EUNet 18%, dar cineva zice, uite, am găsit un american care poate să conducă asta și atunci sigur nu o să dea faliment. Și a intrat Glenn Kovac, primul CEO al lui EUNet BV în Amsterdam, viitoarea rădăcina IBON-ului european, și a zis, da, eu voi conduce asta și o să facem o afacere. Și m-a întrebat, știi pe cineva în România care ar putea să țină asta? Da, am un prieten, Liviu Ionescu. Și cum garantez că el poate să țină o firmă de internet care să nu dea faliment? Păi simplu, el nu lucrează la stat. Eu lucrez la stat că vreau să văd cum dispare statul din economie, pe când el este pe picioarele lui și sigur nu va da faliment. Și așa a apărut EONET România. Asta e doar un mic exemplu. Ideea este că treptat după ROS 93, care am făcut-o la Cluj, ni s-a părut rezonabil, exact cum sunt conferințele de acum. Ni s-a părut rezonabil să o facem la Cluj pentru că am zis că Bucureștiul e mult prea insensibil la o conferință de genul ăsta. Am urmat întâlnirea de la INET 94 de la Praga cu Vinton Cerf, cu John Postel și cu alte persoane care, uite, ăsta, în centru aici este George Sadowski. A fost primul congres ISOC din Europa. Acolo m-am înscris în Interlan Association. Acolo l-am cunoscut pe John Quarterman, care era dintre creatorii BSD-ului, dintre cei care scriseseră Berkeley Sockets în 82 și care avea foarte multe idei, printre care una dintre idei a fost să fondeze să dea o denumire RIPE la o anumită organizație din Europa care se ocupă de domenii și resurse. Deci RIPE a botezat de John Quarterman, care după aceea a venit la noi la o conferință. La Boston, în 94, s-au sărbătorit 25 de ani de la apariția Unix-ului. La Praga, Newsweek a luat un interviu lui Vinton Cerf, Steve Crocker și în fața mea a fost chestia asta și John Postel. Și a zis așa, acești oameni au ratat festivalul de la Woodstock, în schimb au făcut un lucru deștept, internetul. Și în Newsweek erau ei fotografiați în momentul acela. Foarte interesant și foarte, cum să zic, sugestiv pentru noi. Atunci am invitat o parte dintre ei aici, a venit doar unul sau doi, în fine. Urmează o conferință mult mai amplă, în care am vorbit cu toți ăștia din poza aceasta de aici, din poza asta, eu nu știu să folosesc asta. Eu n-am mai vorbit de 28 de ani, cred, cam așa. Deci, la o conferință. Așa, probabil că merge. Lumina. Am ieșit din modul respectiv. Asta e lumina, da? That's the light. Dar... ok. Deci oamenii ăștia din... full screen-ul e 14. Dacă îl punem pe alea... ok. Ok. Aici erau toți șefii grupurilor de Unix din Europa care au reușit să vină aici. Am avut 18 participanți, 18 țări prezente și fiecare a vorbit câte ceva. Probleme am avut cu Stallman, care a venit în România după o lungă conversație și care, în momentul când a preluat microfonul, cum am făcut eu acum, a vorbit, cred că 3 sferturi de oră și a trebuit să-l oprim, după care ne-a creat o mare problemă pentru că a ieșit pe culoar și a mai vorbit vreo jumătate de oră și sala a rămas goală. Reprezentantul IBM-ului mi-a rupt factura și a zis că nu mai plătește speech-uri. Și mă rog, m-am înțeles că la a doua zi și l-am pus la prima oră. Tot atunci, în 94, în România a venit Phil Zimmerman, care a făcut greșeala să vorbească despre PGP și în momentul când a ajuns la JFK, la aeroport, niște oameni l-au oprit și l-au întrebat cum ți-ai permis dumneata să vorbești despre algoritmi de criptare în România când această țară este sub restricțiile COCOM. Și încă mai erau restricțiile COCOM, în fine, Zimmerman a trecut-o în istoria lui personală această întâmplare, imediat după apariția PGP-ului, ce i s-a întâmplat în România. După 94 a venit ROS 95, când l-am adus pe Linus Torvalds aici. Linus reparase Minix-ul lui Tannenbaum, e scris în slide-urile mele care o să le găsiți, și ceea ce a fost extraordinar este că Linus Torvalds a stat o săptămână întreagă aici și a mers în Politehnică la un curs, a vorbit vreo 2-3 ore și după aceea s-a dus în regie cu toți studenții și a mai discutat câteva ore. În plus de asta, la ROS 95 am reușit să aducem pe Esther Dyson, care a înființat ICANN-ul împreună cu John Postel. Și Esther Dyson, știu că era o joi seară și a zis, vai, dar este foarte frig aici. Și am zis, da, e normal, aici nu funcționează căldura, dar noi fiind în mișcare continuă, deci nu simțim asta. Bine, atunci ce să fac? Vin mâine dimineață la ora 9. Și a început așa. I'm Esther Dyson from Adventure Holdings, and I work with Vice President of United States Al Gore to the new infrastructure of United States. We are inventing E2, the new telecommunication pipe for United States, and we are advancing in funding a new organization together with John Postel, which is ICANN. Please talk with me. And I had two ministers o să revin din nou la românește. I have two ministers on the left side and right side from the current government of Romania, and they asked me, what we do? This woman is with the Vice President of the United States. What can we do? Talk with her, she's here. I'm here because Alexandru invited me, and I'm here to talk with you. And she immediately organized a round table with Linus Torvalds, John Quaterman, and Juan Martinez Col from Spain. And they discussed about the future of internet, considering Linux and Cisco and other stuff used for the internet in that moment. And the last when we stopped was ROS 96, when Java appeared. Finally, Java appeared. And this guy, which is Jeff Hammer, it's a good friend of mine, was from Boulder, Colorado. He slipped all the slides down and he took them in a different order and said, oh, he's so robust, this Java, because it's written, it's no matter in which order we read these slides, because it's very robust. Nimeni nu credea că Java este ceva și atunci trebuia promovată Java. Toate aceste întâlniri și contacte au condus la apariția primelor rețele și la dezvoltarea, deci etapa a doua a fost aceea cu dial-up-ul până între 90 și 92 și etapa a treia a fost din 93 până în 2000. Mi-amintesc că în 2000 Tim O'Reilly a declarat cam așa. Internetul este un sistem de operare, nu mai avem ce să discutăm despre diverse sisteme de operare. Și chiar a demonstrat puțin chestia asta. Un an important a fost 1998, când a apărut Catedrala și Bazarul. Eric Raymond a scris această carte și vechea noțiune de free software venită de la Stallman s-a transformat în open source. Bine, acum dacă venim spre vremurile noastre, GitHub-ul este cumpărat de Microsoft, în fine, sunt alte lucruri. În momentul ăsta invit pe colegii pe care i-am la panel, Liviu Ionescu, Răzvan Stănescu, Papi, Vampi și cu Ciobi, la întâlnire. Să discutăm un pic despre primele voastre experiențe cu Unix-ul și cu rețelele care le-ați administrat. De ani n-am
să vezi două lucruri.
Da, unul.
Așa, 1, 2, 3, până la vocea trebuie să mi se liniștească. Bun, ca să aștept să-mi revină vocea, o să-i dau cuvântul lui Liviu Ionescu să ne spună cum a pornit, de ce erau acele Unix-uri în EUNET, în primul moment, și cum le-a folosit în pornirea EUNET România.
În primul rând, mulțumesc lui Adi că a făcut introducerea cu EUNET România. Sunt curios câți din sală au știut de EUNET înainte să povestească
Da.
Da, ok, deci sunt vreo 4-5. Până la povestea cu Unix-ul, poate că era bine să menționăm câteva lucruri despre modul cum a apărut EUNET România ca o societate comercială și ca primul furnizor de servicii internet. În paralel cu poveștile despre întâlnirile lui Adi cu EUNET, eu am avut contacte cu EUNET Austria, am lucrat în Austria în 90 pentru un an și ceva și am început niște discuții și am pornit în 92 primele legături pe UCP cu Viena, între București, din punct de vedere comercial, pentru că mai erau legăturile la Politehnică. Și după aceea, în 93, am avut prima legătură pe X25 cu Parisul, prin care am avut legătură TCP/IP, după care mai târziu am avut și legături pe satelit, a fost o altă poveste. Deci primele transmisii care au fost comerciale de e-mail au fost în 92, firma EUNET România a fost înregistrată în 93, în vara lui 93 și acum funcționează sub numele de GTS Telecom, nu știu cum.
Da, inițial KPN Quest a cumpărat EUNET-ul în Europa.
Da, povestea a fost mai lungă. În momentul în care s-a început, deci a venit Glenn Kovac la conducerea EUNET-ului, EUNET-ul era în continuare parțial academic, parțial comercial, dar statutul nu era clar și Glenn Kovac
și noi eram proprietari, grupurile de Unix.
A insistat Glenn Kovac pentru o tranziție către un statut total comercial cât mai rapid și în momentul ăla, dacă ține bine minte, EUNET România a fost primul EUNET care a pornit direct ca o firmă comercială. Și întâi integrarea în EUNET internațional s-a făcut tehnic, deci numai pe bază de legături de date cu ei și contract de furnizare de servicii, după care s-a hotărât integrarea tuturor EUNET-urilor sub numele de EUNET internațional, deci s-a făcut prin swap share o firmă EUNET internațional, care a fost ulterior achiziționată de KPN, nu mai știu cum se chema, din Statele Unite.
Era KPN Quest, era un joint venture.
De Quest din Statele Unite, după care KPN-ul din Olanda a făcut un merge cu Quest-ul, s-a format KPN Quest-ul și cam...
Și după aceea GTS-ul a cumpărat înapoi acțiunile și s-a transformat în GTS Telecom.
Da, 2000. Bine, povestea e mai complicată. KPN Quest a avut o problemă financiară.
Da, exact.
Deci cam asta a fost istoria.
Și IBON-ul, care era backbone-ul european, a dispărut în 2002, pe vreo 2 august, când toți administratorii au spus v-am servit pe gratis până în acest moment, acum chestia asta a dispărut. Da. Știu că atunci a apărut AG Projects.
Da, deja asta e o poveste.
Mă rog, asta e o poveste care se întinde mai târziu. Da. Acum, vreau să vă spun așa că un lucru foarte important în perioada aia a fost rețeaua școlilor făcută de Soros. Soros a finanțat liceele din România pentru servere Unix, Linux și noi ne-am oferit, Asociația de Unix, ne-am oferit să învățăm pe oamenii ăștia ce înseamnă Linux. Pentru asta s-a făcut o tabără la Eforie Sud, unde ne-am întâlnit cu elevul Ciobărcău, Ciobărceanu, adică Ciobi, mă rog, Ciobi, noi îi zicem Ciobi, în fine, e mult mai simplu, care mi-a dat cadou atunci o rețea ArcNet, care o avea el de la un vapor, de care veniseră cu ea. Eu am fost foarte mândru, am și în ziua de astăzi, o rețea cu un hub și cu 4 plăci pe 1,8 megabits pe secundă de la General Electric. Era complet imună la zgomote electrice. Și rețeaua funcționează, bineînțeles, pe ISA. Eu mai am calculatoare din diverse generații și le pornesc din când în când ca să studiez atacurile pe internet. Pentru că structura de directoare fiind alta, pot să văd cum se mișcă pachetele acelea cu brute force și asta. Deci, Ciobi, cum ai ajuns tu să folosești Unix-ul? În urma cursurilor sau?
Da.
Tu ești cel mai mic dintre noi.
Da, eu sunt...
Puștiu, da.
Eu sunt puștiu. Eu sunt unul dintre exemplele cursurilor de atunci. Chiar îi arătam mai devreme lui Vampi. Încă mai am diploma pe care am primit-o acum aproape 30 de ani, 94, da, 28 de ani.
28 de ani.
Semnată de tine. Așa, de absolvirea cursurilor. După părerea mea, acele cursuri, deși ele erau numite cursuri de Unix, au dat un imbol deosebit dezvoltării internetului în România, pentru că la cursurile respective participau sau au participat puști, practic puști, eram puști pe vremea aia, de la toate, de la licee din toată țara, care mai departe au ajuns network engineers în toate firmele de telecom din România și nu numai. Deci...
Ce pot să vă spun este că am intrat în sală și m-au întrebat unde e internetul. Și am zis, păi cum? Unde e? Nu există internet aici, că nu există nicio conexiune. Și atunci cum vom face? Păi vom crea internetul. Și am pus toate serviciile pe 4 calculatoare. Și am zis, ăsta este internetul, ați înțeles? Da. Dar poți să-l accesezi pe la adevărat? Da, dar doar pe 2 sticle de mulfatlar. Și m-am dus pe terasă unde era o linie pe care se auzeau multiple voci și cu Clarkson Drivers, Clarkson Drivers pe MS-DOS, am prins o conexiune PPP cu firma Intercom din București, care avea o antenă la Budapesta, care de acolo făcea cu dublu hop, TDMA, și de acolo ajungeam la Pipex UK. Și am avut 3 pachete acolo, am dat 2-3 comenzi și s-a întrerupt, bineînțeles. Da, și am luat sticlele de vin.
Da, și asta era scop. Nu, dar asta se întâmpla pe la 10 noaptea, pentru că altfel în timpul zilei liniile telefonice erau atât de proaste încât nu
El știe că avea liceu acolo. Da, bun. După care lucrurile s-au dezvoltat și anume la CPC Soros, pe calea Griviței, a început o activitate febrilă și anume s-a făcut o legătură de 19,2 kilobits pe secundă și toate liceele sunau la acel server, pe dial-up. Și acolo administrarea era făcută de Dudaș, cred, nu? În fine, cam așa. Ideea e că cei de la Palatul Copiilor au realizat că se poate face și acolo o rețea cu cercul de informatică. Și așa s-a inventat o chestie numită PCNet. De fapt, se numea PACO, Palatul Copiilor. De ce am ajuns noi la Palatul Copiilor? Pură întâmplare, pentru că acolo erau standuri de aluminiu gratis. Și noi aveam nevoie ca pe holurile conferinței să fie toate firmele. Am un film în care o să vedeți, începând cu IBM și terminând cu Oracle, toate firmele participând la aceste conferințe. În momentul când lucrurile s-au complicat și au apărut 32 de linii telefonice, unul dintre noi a trebuit să se sacrifice și acesta este Răzvan Stănescu Papi, zis Papi, care a participat ulterior și la scrierea acelui program numit RAV Antivirus, în fine, și care a rămas ca prim administrator la PCNet. Spune-ne și tu.
Da, eu îmi urmam cariera ca dezvoltator de software și vine Adi la un moment dat, măi, avem la PCNet acolo, facem internet. Noi foloseam UCP, exportam software prin UCP, prin dial-up, în fine. Și zic, da, măi, hai că ar fi o chestie interesantă să pun la CV administrare de sistem. Am ajuns la PCNet, erau două linii închiriate, inițial cu ICI, după care...
RNC.
Da? Cu RNC-ul, da?
Tocmai s-a șters domeniul de 2 secunde.
Da. După care am mai luat 2 linii cu voi, cu Vampi, cu antena lor, da? Ce mai aveam? Mai aveam o legătură cu LogicNet, mai aveam o legătură cu Kappa. Toată perioada aia ne-a ajutat foarte mult să înțelegem cum lucrează un sistem. Eu știam deja Unix dinainte, dar ne-a ajutat să înțelegem cum lucrează un sistem. Am învățat protocoale de rutare, am învățat o grămadă de lucruri.
Da, papi lucra pe Next Step-uri la o firmă numită Medisoft înainte de asta.
Da.
Acolo l-am găsit eu pe el, împreună cu alți 2 colegi de-ai mei.
Da, era un Unix BSD acolo și aveam experiență în Unix. Au fost niște vremuri în care, da, am crescut împreună cu netul și cu tot ce s-a
a apărut și primul hacker, nu?
A apărut și primul hacker, un idiot, după părerea mea, dacă mă întrebați pe mine. Un idiot despre care nu ar trebui să discutăm, dar... No. Oricum, ex-președintele țării s-a fotografiat cu el.
Da, și a trebuit să mă duc eu la Consiliul Prezidențial să spun că nu e bine.
Că nu e bine, da, așa. În fine. Da, pe acel tip l-am folosit într-o noapte ca pen test și am trecut testul, deci nu am avut probleme. Da, promovat pe nedrept și doar ca o bombă de presă.
Așa, și acum vine altă întâmplare. În anul 1995, cred, apare un grup de suedezi și norvegieni de la firma Tide Networks, care au călătorit cu un avion în care era foarte frig. Profesorul de la Stockholm, care era cu ei, nu răcise, în schimb cei care erau de la Tide erau foarte răciți și atunci m-am dus cu ei la o ciorbă de burtă. Acolo am discutat despre Fundația Soros și despre programele de aici și eu au venit cu următoarea idee. Păi, hai să-i propunem lui George Soros să facem o legătură între toate fundațiile din Europa de Est. Și în felul ăsta, George Soros, care s-a gândit în momentul ăla că e o concurență neloială ca să dea internet gratis în țările est europene, s-a hotărât să construiască o firmă numită DNT. Parcă așa se numea, nu?
DNT,
și DNT-ul ăsta s-a conectat cu 64 de kilobits în 4 orașe prin Tide la internet. Și Vampi poate să povestească un pic despre această perioadă.
Da, deci eu am fost probabil unul dintre cei mai norocoși administratori, fiindcă în 95 Liviu m-a angajat. A fost primul meu angajator și m-a învățat cu Cisco și cu Unix. Mai știam că ne ocupam în facultate mai mult să facem prostii pe Unix. Și după ce am avut noi o mică dispută, el la momentul respectiv era fan Microsoft, eu nu. Așa mi s-a părut mie. M-am dus la Fundația Soros și acolo am stat pe legătura de care Adi zicea de 19,2 cu Pipex o perioadă, până când au apărut liniile de 64 de K. Pe liniile astea dădeam internet la toate școlile care aveau nevoie, pentru că la momentul respectiv rețeaua națională de calculatoare începuse să lege unele dintre liceele pe care le aveam noi legate. Deci noi mai rămăsesem cu restul țării. Pe cele din București le legaseră. Și la fundații non-profit, la diverse organizații neguvernamentale, aveam Cisco-uri, am angajat alți studenți, colegi de-ai mei de la facultate și uneori și elevi foarte, foarte buni. Mergeam prin țară și făceam traininguri de Linux din partea Fundației Soros, la Călăraș, la Gălăciuc, lângă Focșani. Practic, Fundația Soros dona câte o rețea de calculatoare pentru un anumit liceu și rețeaua aia conținea stații și 2 servere. Unul de Windows și unul de Linux, prin care se făcea poșta electronică și celelalte servicii. Și noi în acele tabere ne pregăteam și îi pregăteam pe cei ca Ciobi, nu pe el. De fapt și tu ai fost la Călăraș, parcă. Da.
Am trecut prin toate stadiile, adică am fost cursant, după care am fost lector,
profesor, exact.
După care am fost instalator de sisteme pe la licee. Deci a fost o perioadă, după cum spuneam, de intensă dezvoltare. Unul din avantajele din acel moment era că nu aveam nimic. Culmea. Deci în România era un deșert din punct de vedere comunicații. Acum începem să sunăm ca niște babe de alea, că pe vremea noastră. Așa. Dar câteodată este important să ne cunoaștem istoria și unde am ajuns.
Da, deci gândiți-vă că 12 calculatoare pentru o școală sau pentru un liceu și o legătură la internet care mergea stabil pe la 2400-4800. Uneori te bucurai dacă prindeai 9.
Erau biți pe secundă.
Da, kilobiți. Corect, erau kilobiți.
Kilobiți, bine.
Era, da, 2,4K. Așa. Era o bucurie. Adică, ce să vă spun, te duci într-un loc gen Petroșani și pui la facultatea din Petroșani un modem acolo, oamenii aia probabil te țin minte toată viața. Pentru că așa era atunci. Și cam asta făceam noi la DNT până când firma a fost cumpărată de Astral.
În fine.
Nevoie de un suport non-comercial. Internetul se dezvoltase suficient astfel încât să nu mai fie nevoie de subvenții.
Da, deci practic nu mai a fost nevoie de subvenții. Toate organizațiile non-guvernamentale reușiseră să atragă suficiente fonduri cât să-și plătească un abonament la internet. Toate liceele și școlile ajunseseră, asta s-a întâmplat în 2000. Toate liceele și școlile ajunseseră să fie conectate în rețeaua națională de calculatoare. Deci, practic, n-a mai fost nevoie și atunci cei de la Soros au vândut firma.
Și mai pot să completez eu ce s-a întâmplat la mine la IRUC după acea fantastică rețea dial-up de care v-am zis la început. Mi-a venit ideea să fac o rețea mai mare și i-am dat denumirea Rolink. Acum există o firmă Rolink Plus pe care o conduc. Dar atunci exista o denumire, doar Rolink. Și alături de mine era un băiat care lucrase un proiect de recunoaștere a vorbirii, se numea Dan Pascu, și îndrumătorul, adică, mă rog, cel care făcuse proiectul, Matei Zira, un coleg de-al meu de laborator, îmi spune, vezi că băiatul ăsta poate să facă ceva. Și i-am dat un router Cisco pe care l-a luat la el acasă și i-am spus că în momentul când a înțeles tot ce face ăla, să mă întrebe care e proiectul. Și am zis, hai să facem și noi o rețea națională. Și le zice, ok. Și ne-am apucat și am făcut în punctele locale ale IRUC-ului noduri online peste X25, lucrând cu cei de la RTNS, de la Global One, ulterior. În momentul când a început să se îngroașe gluma, adică eu lucram la doctoratul meu, care s-a terminat în mileniul trecut, adică prin 98, m-am apucat să fac să lucrez, să mă integrez într-un program numit Starea timpului pe internet. Lucram cu John Quarterman, cu JavaScript-uri și studiam furtunile de trafic din Europa și aveam ceasurile pe roșu sau pe verde. Acum, la noi, rețea care aveam în total 64 de kilobits sau 128 de kilobits, în total ieșea toată rețeaua. Bine, între orașe, în momentul când Pascu a văzut agenții mei care îi băgasem în toate nodurile, a zis că noi o să ruinăm traficul pe acolo și să mă las de chestia asta. Și atunci l-am întrebat și eu, dar tu ce primești atât de multe mail-uri? Nu știi, am făcut o interfață grafică pe Linux. O interfață nouă. Păi nu există KDE și Gnome. Nu, eu am făcut Window Maker-ul. Și după aceea am dus la o conferință la Timișoara unde ziceau ăștia, Dan Pascu, care de mult a fost în România, celebrul Dan Pascu, a făcut Window Maker-ul. Acum Dan Pascu gestionează cu AG Projects, cu cumnatul lui Georgescu, Enum-ul în Amsterdam, care este o rămășiță din Ebon. Adică site-ul acela de Enum e susținut tehnic de Dan Pascu. Din păcate el n-a putut să vină astăzi aici.
Vreau să mai adaug ceva, că ai pomenit de a lua Cisco acasă și să vadă ce face. Deci cam așa lucram pe vremea aia. Nu aveam internet, nu știu dacă vă dați seama, nu aveam internet, deci nu prea aveam acces la documentație și cam așa făceam. Luam un aparat și îl frecam toată noaptea.
Colegul meu care e în Canada acum, Daniel Dumitriu, care era în conducerea asociației de Unix, avea 3 bulzenituri în casă de la Tarom, le dăduse aia cadou, și nu avea telefon. În schimb, copiii lui trimiteau mail-uri dintr-o cameră într-alta dimineața, că se trezeau. Era pe lângă Belul, la un bloc din acela. Și, practic, au trăit în felul ăsta, da, vremurile acelea. Oricum,
ca și o anecdotă, cam cum erau lucrurile în 95 la EUNET, eu și cu Liviu, cum citeam documentație de pe net, având în vedere că aveam conexiunea peste X25 și plăteam la pachet. Liviu intra în CompuServe, aveam noi niște grupuri de care aveam nevoie. Intra în CompuServe, punea page off, ca să nu se oprească pagină cu pagină, și pe urmă dădeam drumul la tot grupul și îl captam intram cu screen și făceam captură la tot ce este pe ecran. Și pe urmă, ulterior, le luam noi și le citeam ca să economisim pachete, pentru că legătura aia cu Parisul peste X25 era extrem de scumpă în momentul respectiv. Deci, asta e internet.
Foarte multe nopți pierdute. Da. Cam așa s-a făcut.
Și comandam cărți care sosau probabil după o lună jumate, 2 luni de zile, pentru că...
Asta nu s-a schimbat prea mult.
Da. Oricum, Tim O'Reilly ne-a ajutat foarte mult, editura Tim O'Reilly și cei de la Free Unix for Romania. Era o asociație internațională condusă de Marius Hâncu, care trimiteau aici cărți și distribuții de free software. Și la un moment dat, la Universitatea Wisconsin, s-a făcut un cub imens de cărți, adică avea înălțimea 2 metri și o foarte mare... și unul dintre cei care au venit mai târziu, prin 97-98, era o regulă. Cine venea invitat la noi, trecea pe la cubul acela și aducea câteva cărți. Și unul dintre invitații noștri a spus că a trecut pe acolo și, din păcate, n-a găsit Knut, volumul 2. Și am zis, nu, mai caută un pic, și atunci a venit cu 2 exemplare. Da, era foarte, foarte multă implicare. Eu zic că cu asta ne oprim aici, pentru că e vorba de trecut, dar e un trecut care merită cunoscut. Eu pot să țin aici ore în șir povești din astea, adică întâmplări reale, care sunt foarte multe. Mai discutăm în pauză, mai vedem. Oricum, ce mi-am propus este ca toate materialele care le-am, care sunt și filme, poze, filme, telejurnale din perioada aia, care le-am tras de pe casete VHS și le-am transformat în formate citibile în ziua de astăzi. În fine, Vinton Cerf a pornit un proiect cu Smithsonian Institute numit Digital Preservation, pentru că și-a dat seama că multe din resursele din anii 80 zac în niște garaje ale unora care mâine pe mine vor muri, cum ar fi Larry Lamberger, care are foarte multe discuri. Și a zis, Larry, dacă tu mâine dispari, cine o să știe ce am făcut noi între 80 și 90? Și asta e o mare problemă și pe Internet Society există un proiect numit Digital Preservation, foarte interesant, care eu urmăresc asta. Bine, mulțumesc mult!
Mulțumim!
Am uitat de misiunea mea de coordonator al plenarei, care e până la 10:30. Am să-l invit pe Radu Ghidicianu să ne prezinte partea despre RONIX, ultimele noutăți sau știri despre exchange-ul acesta. Este vorba de exchange-ul ANISP.
Îți spun site ceva Ronix? Ce vrei tu? Sau vrei...
În situația de față mai.
Nu? Pun RONOG? În spate?
Da, sus. Dacă n-am prezentare, am trimis. Sunt spam. Pentru voi sunt spam. Toate adresele. Că nu am. Slide-ul se aude? Slide-ul meu n-a ajuns, așa că avem alt slide aici și dacă vreți să vorbiți, o să ne întâlnim la pauză, că nu am datele de contact afișate. Așa cum am fost introdus, reprezint RONIX, exchange-ul românesc, care a pornit în 2001. Pe vremea aia era doar un switch în Palatul Telefoanelor și a pornit ca un proiect al operatorilor mari de telecomunicații din România care erau prezenți la data respectivă pe piață, dintr-o necesitate de a ține traficul național local. La vremea respectivă se comunica prin satelit, întârzierile erau mari, furnizorii upstream nu prea se interconectau între ei, adică se interconectau prin America și era necesar un exchange pe piața locală. Operatorii care, printre operatorii care l-au fondat, nu sunt sigur că îi mai menționez pe toți, că mai țin minte de la vremea respectivă, a fost Mobifonul, care între timp a devenit Vodafone, Dialogul, care a devenit Orange, Eurovebul, care acum este parte din Turk Telecom Internațional, IRUC Digicom, domnul Rotaru care a vorbit și acum a devenit Rolling, SNR-ul care a devenit Radiocom, GTS-ul care a fost, dacă nu mă înșel, membru sub numele de Chipi Enquest la ora respectivă, Global One care a devenit Equant și mai târziu Orange Business Services, Capa Servexim care a devenit Astral, după care a devenit UPC România și apoi Vodafone. Au mai fost niște nume care chiar au dispărut, au dat faliment, Logic Telecom cu DNT, nu știu ce s-a întâmplat, Totalnet, deci au mai fost niște nume care au dispărut. Dar ideea este că majoritatea membrilor care au fondat Asociația Furnizorilor de Internet sunt în continuare aici, sub alte nume, după cum s-au transformat sau au fuzionat. În momentul de față, Asociația Furnizorilor are circa 32 de membri și internetul, exchange-ul circa 50 de membri. Din experiența noastră am remarcat cam trei cazuri în privința schimbării operatorilor în timp. Un aspect este că piața este finită în România și nu prea mai au de unde să apară nume noi. În concluzie, ne așteptăm în momentul de față mai mult la operatori de afară care vin să facă business în România. Alt caz este cu operatorii mari care au absorbit operatori mai mici și chiar medii. În felul acesta mai dispărând o parte dintre operatorii care au fost conectați. Și mai e un aspect legat de țară, e destul de mare și este foarte greu să... Operatorii mici care mai au prin țară sunt destul de izolați și destul de departe de București. Care au crescut, au ajuns la București și atunci principalul punct de interconectare este în București. Dintr-un switch care era cu 21 de ani când am pornit, a ajuns o rețea distribuită în mai multe popuri ca să ajutăm toți operatorii să se interconecteze mai ușor în funcție de condițiile pe care le găsesc prin popuri, negociind direct cu posesorii data center-urilor respective. RONIX nu este o entitate juridică, este doar un proiect al Asociației Furnizorilor de Internet. Practic, membrii noștri sunt acționarii asociației. Ei decid asupra funcționării RONIX-ului, decid taxele de interconectare. Practic, taxele de interconectare sunt menite să acopere cheltuielile operaționale și dezvoltările ulterioare, achiziției de echipamente și așa mai departe. Deci nu facem profit din Internet Exchange. La început, RONIX-ul fusese doar pentru furnizorii de internet strict, pentru ISP. Pe măsură ce piața s-a maturizat, a devenit necesară și interconectarea altor tipuri de entități, cum ar fi furnizorii de servicii de conținut, hosteri, CDN-uri, servicii de DNS, servicii de streaming și așa mai departe. Acum, sigur, CDN-urile s-a dovedit a crește cel mai mult traficul unui exchange, dar, pe de altă parte, diluează foarte mult informația asupra traficului național care se schimbă aici între operatorii locali. Se întâmplă niște fenomene. În momentul când doi operatori au trafic peste o anumită limită prin Internet Exchange, practic ei vor să aibă un peering direct și atunci o parte din traficul din Internet Exchange va dispărea și se va schimba pe lângă Internet Exchange. Operatorii, când apare un trafic, avem și interconectări cu exchange-uri din afară, cum ar fi două Internet Exchange-uri din Bulgaria, Netix și Vix. Dar și aici este un aspect important. În momentul când operatorii locali, cei mari în special și medii, se trezesc cu un trafic din alte zone din lume sau din Europa, se întreabă ce e cu traficul ăsta pe aici. Ce e cu Azerbaijan Telecom la noi aici? Și îl filtrează. Deci, operatorii mai mari nu vor să le vină trafic să-l preia aici în Internet Exchange în România, fiindcă au rețele internaționale și dacă chiar au nevoie de traficul ăla, îl preiau în alte puncte din Europa sau din alte zone. Deci nu va crește traficul din aceste interconectări care vin de prin alte părți ale lumii. Iar operatorii mici, care nu comentează asupra genului ăsta de trafic, ar putea fi bun, din nou nu fac un trafic real pe direcțiile respective. Cum RONIX este o organizație non-profit, nu face bani din trafic. Din cauza asta, RONIX-ul n-a avut ca obiect principal creșterea traficului. Traficul este acolo ca o necesitate a operatorilor atâta cât au nevoie. Rețeaua a crescut și disponibilitatea de transport este foarte mare. Avem o rețea de 100 giga și foarte multe porturi disponibile de 100 de giga. Iar în țară s-a dovedit că peste 10 giga nu a cerut nimeni. Deci în București ar fi necesități de 100 de giga, în țară mai puțin, 10 giga. Un alt aspect care ar fi de menționat așa ca o problemă pentru viitor, creșterea prețului energiei electrice. Echipamentele consumă mult. Ne orientăm către echipamente mai ieftine în viitor și sperăm că această problemă cu consumul de energie electrică să prețurile astea bombastice să dispară. Dar îmi pun problema acum dacă un POP în țară care interconectează, să zicem, 2 operatori, având în vedere consumul, costurile cu energia electrică, switch-urile de interconectare de core sunt destul de mari, multe porturi, și consumul respectiv, plus transportul până la nodurile din București, dacă mai devine fezabil în viitor în condițiile care prețul energiei s-ar putea să nu scadă.
Radu? Mulțumim mult. Vrea și Eric să intervină și vrem să ținem pauză, știi? Ca să... Termina, nu termina.
Termina. Dacă aveți... În principiu a fost doar un update, deci nu foarte mare prezentare. Dacă aveți întrebări, putem să discutăm la pauză, sunt aici. Iar dacă e ceva urgent, sigur puteți să mă întrebați acum în
Nu, se pot lua întrebări. Se pot lua întrebări. Dacă sunt întrebări. Vă rog.
Dacă sunt întrebări urgente, dacă nu întrebări, colegul de la Unix o zis că nu se merită în țară. Și foarte bine că în țară au mai rămas foarte puține fii.
Adică, practic, noi care, de exemplu, eu sunt în Timișoara, mai am coleg de la Arad, noi ce să facem? Nu mai avem atunci acces în București? Pentru că costă un switch curentul. Trebuie să găsim variante.
Da.
De asta.
Indubitabil, da. Eu puneam problema asupra costurilor. Costurile pot fi împărțite, pot fi sponsorizate, dar depinde. Da. E vorba de un calcul de fezabilitate, nu că este imposibil.
Păi, oricum este în gaură, cum s-ar zice, dar...
N-aveți prezență în București?
Păi nu am prezență în București. Eu trebuie să-mi iau din Timișoara, că acolo am serverele. Da. Dar eu până în Timișoara trebuie să mi-l aduc undeva.
Da.
Și știți foarte bine că în țară au mai rămas foarte puține firme. În fiecare oraș, dacă mai este una, maxim 2.
Da, asta e o problemă, sigur. Da, asta ziceam la început, piața este finită și din cauza asta așteptăm mai degrabă operatori de afară, că din țară nu prea mai avem de unde.
Mulțumim mult. Dacă mai sunt alte întrebări, discutăm și în pauză. Eric?
Mulțumesc! O să vă fac o scurtă prezentare, în minutele care au mai rămas, despre platforma Interlan Internet Exchange, platforma pe care Asociația Interlan o întreține. Câteva cuvinte despre asociație. Asociația Interlan este o asociație care a fost... platforma Interlan Internet Exchange este deținută de asociație, iar asociația este o organizație non-profit a furnizorilor de servicii de acces la internet și rețele din România, care în momentul de față are 43 de companii membre. Membrii asociației sunt numai furnizori din România, iar platforma Interlan X este platforma care este proiectul de bază al asociației, alături de alte proiecte pe care le face în interesul membrilor săi. Numele Interlan vine de la Interconnecting Local Area Networks, pentru că la început eram niște rețele foarte mici și de acolo a pornit și acest nume. Platforma Interlan Internet Exchange are în prezent 130 de AS numbers, 130 de rețele conectate. Este prezentă în 15 locații, 7 în București și 7 în principalele orașe din țară. În această platformă se regăsește și serviciul TVX, care este practic este o platformă de streamuri cu canale de la televiziuni, 5 servere DNS root, serviciul AS112, un router route collector de la RIPE-NCC, care ajută la o mai bună prezență a conexiunilor de peering în o mai bună vizibilitate și de asemenea folosim aplicația IXP Manager pentru managementul conexiunilor de peering. Sunt 168 de porturi conectate în 15 puncte de prezență, din care, cum spuneam, cele 7 din București sunt conectate pe un inel 40G, iar celelalte 7 din țară, fiecare pe câte un link de 10 giga. De asemenea, avem o conexiune în Frankfurt de 200 de giga protejată, pe care o folosim intens. Capacitatea conectată totală este de 2,5 terabits, capacitate 2,5 terabits și de asemenea majoritatea celor conectați folosesc route serverele și au activat și IPv6. În prezent, traficul ajunge la 400 de gigabiți, traficul zilnic ajunge la vârful de 400 de gigabiți, iar ca și volum am avut în 2021 peste 10 milioane de terabytes tranzitați prin platformă, în creștere în ultimii 4 ani, practic volumul s-a dublat de la 5 terabytes de la 5 milioane de terabytes la 10 milioane de terabytes. Și ca o curiozitate, ca să zic așa, așteptată de altfel, am avut o masivă creștere de trafic, am constatat-o în luna martie, atunci când a crescut foarte mult traficul cu Republica Moldova și Ucraina și acolo se și vede unde am pus săgeata, cum a fost creșterea și mai departe a fost o creștere constantă pe perioada verii, când de obicei traficul scade. Serverele DNS root fac parte dintr-o rețea de servere la nivel global. Sunt 12 entități care controlează cele 13 instanțe, notate de la A la M. Din acestea, 8 sunt prezente în România, în București, iar din cele 8 din București, 5 se află la Interlan, D-root de la Universitatea din Maryland, E-root de la NASA Ames Research Center, F-root de la Internet System Consortium, K-root de la RIPE NCC și L-root de la ICANN. O să avem și o prezentare mai târziu. Vă spuneam de platforma TVX. În această platformă sunt prezente 154 de streamuri care reprezintă 106 canale în diverse formate, SD, HD și chiar și 4K. Și de asemenea avem o aplicație care este în curs de dezvoltare și va fi gata în curând, prin care televiziunile vor putea controla unde ajung streamurile lor la ce operatori. IXP Manager este o aplicație care este destinată managementului Internet Exchange-urilor. Are o interfață de administrare pentru stafful Interlan, o interfață pentru fiecare client. Acolo clienții pot intra și pot vedea tot felul de informații despre conexiune, trafic și așa mai departe, cu cine pot face peering și multe alte informații. Este o aplicație open source care a fost dezvoltată de un Internet Exchange din Irlanda, iar Interlan este un sponsor silver al acestui proiect începând cu anul 2018. PeeringDB este o bază de date cu interconectări. Acolo ar trebui să fie prezente toate rețelele, dar nu sunt toate, sunt marea majoritate. Ne găsiți acolo pe PeeringDB atât informații despre Interlan Internet Exchange, cât și informații despre route serverele Interlan Internet Exchange. De asemenea, legat de PeeringDB, suntem sponsor silver al acestui proiect, iar totodată Interlan a sprijinit realizarea interfeței în limba română, care în momentul de față este realizată 100%, este limba cea mai tradusă dintre toate limbile din PeeringDB. Ce am mai făcut în 2022? Am crescut, bineînțeles, numărul de ASN-uri, am crescut numărul de furnizori de conținut prezenți în platformă, de canale TV, am făcut migrarea către switch-uri Arista în popurile din țară, pentru că în București erau deja. Am upgradat link-ul către Frankfurt de la 100 la 20 de giga, protejat în momentul de față. Și un lucru foarte important care s-a întâmplat, a fost marcat ieri, am lansat un parteneriat cu DKIX, care este în momentul de față cea mai mare platformă de interconectări la nivel global. Prin acest parteneriat, entitățile din România, atât furnizori de servicii de internet, dar și segmentul enterprise, vor putea să beneficieze de servicii din acest ecosistem la nivel global de interconectări. De asemenea, am susținut cauza ucraineană prin scutirea la taxă a operatorului ucrainean care este conectat în Interlan Internet Exchange și sperăm că lucrul ăsta a ajutat cumva. Evenimentele care sunt găzduite de Interlan, bineînțeles RONOG, este a 7-a ediție RONOG pe care Interlan o găzduiește în momentul de față. Am început prima ediție în anul 2014. Am mai găzduit un forum EuroX. EuroX este Organizația Europeană a Internet Exchange-urilor în anul 2014 la București, odată cu primul RONOG. De asemenea, anul viitor vom găzdui un nou forum EuroX la Cluj-Napoca de data asta, care va fi în luna aprilie. RIPE Meetings am avut în 2015 am avut RIPE Meeting aici în București, RIPE 71, care a fost găzduit tot de Interlan și de asemenea am mai găzduit o reuniune RIPE regională la Timișoara în anul 2018. Am avut și un eveniment cu Internet Society în 2016, am găzduit evenimentul ION Meeting, Internet On. Cam asta despre Interlan. Dacă aveți întrebări, mă găsiți prin prejur. Sunt și colegii mei aici, Angela și ceilalți colegi. Dacă aveți întrebări, ne puteți adresa întrebări. Mulțumesc mult! Urmează o pauză de cafea de jumătate de oră. O să începem din nou la ora 11. Ați primit un tichet de t-shirt, găsiți afară, puteți să vă duceți să vă ridicați tricourile.
Mike. Hey teacher, leave the kids alone. Hello. So welcome to the second panel, the plenary. And we shall start with a few words from Nermin El Saadani, which is Regional Vice President, MENA, Middle East and North Africa Region, Internet Society. Nermin, please.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Nermin El Saadani. I work with the Internet Society as the Regional Vice President for the MENA and Middle East countries, so I handle the Arab countries and some of the Middle East countries as well. I'm originally Egyptian, so I work from Egypt. Our office is based in Cairo, Egypt. So thank you so much for inviting me to your gathering today. It gives me great honor to be with you, and I hope that my presentation today will be of interest and will actually continue on the presentation that we heard, or the panel that we heard today in the morning. And it brought some memories, and I think we have some linkages between how the internet starts here in Romania, and today I will show you how the internet or the Internet Society started with the global internet and how we link ourselves to the very beginnings of the internet back in the 90s. But before we start with where we started actually, we believe in this very easy but yet deep statement: the internet is for everyone. This is our belief. This is actually the origination for our mission. So we believe the internet has to be there for everyone, every time, and in a secure, trustworthy manner, as our mission statement denotes. When did we start? We started back in 1992 when the group of engineering, the task force, the IETF, as we all know it, thought that they needed an institutional organization to handle financial, administrative work and look after the standards of the internet, and so that they can have the time to continue innovating and developing the internet, or the World Wide Web as we now know it. So back in 1992, the Internet Society was established as an international organization, non-for-profit, and now we see ourselves as one of the global organizations that cater for the internet. And our center of focus, or the core of our business, actually revolves about people and how people can actually develop the internet, not only by the engineers, but normal people like myself, for example, since I'm not a technical person, like others, like students, like families, and so on and so forth. So if we look on the screen, we strive to keep the internet open, global, connected, secure, and trustworthy, and as well for everyone, as I mentioned earlier in my slides. And since we revolve about people, just a couple of numbers for your attention. So we have about 91,000 global members across the world. We have 130 chapter and special interest groups, as well as standing groups, and I will explain a little bit about chapters later in my slides. We have organization member about 90, and we are all 140 staff, based in 28 countries, speaking about 28 languages. And you can see this even on our website as well. Maybe 2 or 3 years ago, after the COVID or with the COVID starting in 2020, we rethought about our strategy and we decided about our strategic pillars. As noted on the slides, we summarized what we have been doing through the years and looking forward ahead for the coming years as well on build, promote, and defending the internet. So we summarized or tried to be concise more about our mission and how are we going to implement and achieve our mission on building the internet. So we cannot actually believe that a country or a city or a district cannot have internet at any point in time, especially after the COVID. And I think this proved, the COVID and the lockdown that took place proved that the internet is a survival tool that everyone should have, and it became more and more into the rights of people to have internet so that they can not only work, but also to communicate with family, friends, loved ones, and so on and so forth. So building the internet is one of our strategic pillars, and then promoting the internet the way we believe should be promoted. So we believe that promoting the internet should take place through ourselves, our people, and our community, so that we can have more accessibility, more trustworthy, more secured kind of transactions online as well as offline. And then, of course, if we are really caring about having internet for everyone in a trustworthy manner, we as well need to defend the internet the way we believe it should be. So we cannot bear the fact that the internet could be shut down in one place. For instance, we try to defend the internet so that everyone can have access and can develop whatever he needs to develop, whether even his personal skills or whatever, through the internet. For us to achieve the strategic pillars and our mission statement, we divided our work into 2 groups of projects. And we became what we aspire to be, a project-led organization as well. And the 2 groups would be the growing of the internet, or the internet growth, and the internet strength, or strengthening the internet. And below each category of these two categories, we will have a number of projects, about 8 or 9 projects, that we look after implementation through our partners in every country, and as well with different organizations, whether regional or international, so that we can achieve our mission and see our strategic pillars happening on the ground. So the very first one will be growing the internet, and this bunch of projects would be related to building the internet, as I will explain, and then the strengthening of the internet to equip people to protect the internet and the infrastructure layer, as I will as well speak. And the last thing, and I added here our last pillar that we added actually last year, how to shape the future of the internet, and this is more focused into people, as I will be explaining as well. So growing the internet will be more or less caring about infrastructure of the internet and accessibility. So we have projects such as projects that would promote, for example, establishing internet exchange points. And I don't know if you are aware or not, but still not every country in the world has its own internet exchange point. Still in my region, for instance, traffic goes through Europe, and for example, through London or even through New York. So the cost of the internet is very, very high. The quality of the service could not be as we aspire to have it. So one of the very, very easy things to be done is to establish an IXP, of course. You are all much more aware about this than me. So we do this kind of support through our projects to help building an IXP in the countries or in the places that they don't have, or to help them develop their own IXP if they have one and it's old, or the governance model of it is not helping the IXP to leapfrog. So we do help them to do this through one of our projects here under the growing of the internet. As well, if we are saying that accessibility is key, and if the internet has to be for everyone, then we have to look at the kind of project that can provide this accessibility in an innovative manner. So we came up with a project that we call community networks. I don't know if you are aware or not, but community network is to build a network by the community, to the community, and for the community. So we go for the community in one of the countries, in even like the Tibet, for instance, or a country like Yemen. They have a city called Hadramaut, which, you know, the Yemen, for instance, has one cable, fiber optics cable running through the whole country, and this is the only way they have access to the global or the World Wide Web. So if this cable got any kind of cut or even attack through the wartime and so on, they go in darkness, so they don't have internet. And some of the cities there, they don't have internet in the first place, even through this connectivity, through this one fiber that runs through the country. So we are now actually started last year, we are now establishing for them a community network led by the chapter in Yemen there, and in coordination with some of the regional organizations and national organizations that works in Yemen, to build actually a network in the city of Hadramaut to serve the community there. I don't remember the number, but I can share with you later maybe some of the figures for that project. So community network is a project that is very dear to our heart. I think it's very useful. I think even in developed countries, for example, we see some community network projects established in New York itself. So not only in countries that has suffering from the internet or lack of accessibility, but also in even developed countries that might not have good connectivity somewhere, so they can apply this project to establish community network for a certain district and by the community. So this is important, because when we go to the community and try to explain how community network works, it necessitates that we will do some capacity building for the engineers there, as well as even the administrative staff who will be looking for, or after the network, after we, establish the project and start to withdraw or do the exit strategy, we have to have sustainable model. So we raise the caliber that is present in this district, and therefore there are benefits even indirectly to the people living there in that area to gain some more skills or new skills for themselves. So any project that could be related to the infrastructure, so peering, for instance, how to exchange traffic, IXP, as I mentioned, community network, and later we introduced this project on the low Earth orbit satellites as well. So anything related to the infrastructure is being catered here below this pillar on growing the internet. When we look to strengthening the internet, I think this will more relate to how to secure the transactions online. So one of the very famous as well, it has started as an initiative maybe 5 years ago, and then it developed as a project. It calls Manner, so routing security guidelines. How to secure the routing security guidelines, and we have a very big portal with like an observatory of the incidents that can take place in any place by any provider providing internet. We can note it, and we can help the provider to fix his network so as not to face this kind of incident again, and secure his transactions or his networks. It doesn't need anything. I mean, there is no like money or fees or subscription or membership to join Manners. It's free, but you just need to apply and bind by the guidelines that we have stated on the portal for the Manners to be able to understand better how to secure your own transactions and join the efforts of the others to have better transactions. Because if we are able to secure or raise the security measures on each and every network and every exchange happening, then we are raising security on the global network all at once. Another one of the projects that is very, very interesting, and I think very, very important as well globally, not only from the technical perspective, but also from a political perspective, is the IWN, or what we call Internet Way of Modeling, where we explain at the very beginning of this project, when we started it, how the internet works through, I think, 5 criteria that at the very, very beginning, back in the 90s, when the internet was introduced, these were the criteria that the fathers of the internet noted, together with the engineers and so on, that if we have these criteria preserved, then we are having a sound, healthy, innovative internet as they aspire to have. If any of these criteria were messed up or got for any reason not put in place in the right manner, then the internet as we know it will not be working appropriately or working well or working at all. So for instance, we developed through this project as well a toolkit to explain more how can we use this and how can we benefit from that. And through this project, we explain how even sanctions, economic sanctions, or during war times, for instance, and how war can affect the internet if they are targeting infrastructure for the internet in a specific country, and we defend the internet through that project. The other related one would be measuring the internet, and this is related to the internet shutdowns. And when we say internet shutdowns, I don't mean the internet shutdowns by decision of a government, but rather even if you have a cut in one of the fiber optics or the fibers or cables providing internet in one country or for one server or whatever, and as well shutting down the internet by a decision even by for example, Ministry of Education in some places. So again, in my region, since I come from or I cater over the MENA and the Middle East, it's very, very famous in some places, in some countries, to have internet shut down for few days, for instance, during senior exams, so for high school exams. Because of what? Because the Ministry of Education would like to stop cheating during exams. So students are now acquainted to use their mobile to cheat during exams. So for them, for the government represented in the Ministry of Education, they decide to shut down the servers for certain schools in some district, for instance. And this is a very famous within the cabinet of these countries, debate between the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Communications, that one, of course, the later would like to defend the internet from a technical even perspective. Don't shut the internet there because it will have a spillover effect on other, sectors like the economic sector, like investment coming to the country and so on and so forth, while the education minister would try to convince the cabinet and the PM to decide on shutting down the internet in some areas and some villages to prevent cheating, while of course there are several other ways that they can do, not to use this tool, but to use other ways to stop cheating without harming the internet. So the internet measurement project that we have would tackle this issue and try to explain to governments as well as other entities that whatever you are trying to defend or trying to achieve, don't shut down the internet, because the repercussions that you will have would be immense and would even touch upon areas that you are not thinking of. And it's our role to advise you on that and explain how this can affect you negatively, more than even the thing that you are thinking about. One of the other projects that could be of interest as well is to increase awareness about encryption. So encryption, again, is one of the areas that would be very, very critical to defending the internet, because sometimes we face some, backdoor measures that could be taken anywhere by any as well entity to invade privacy. And we have seen this globally, even when there were incidents, as far as I remember, a couple of years ago back in the United States, and the FBI requested Apple to provide information about about that incident, and Apple refused, and the examples would go on and on of the different situations that we face this kind of thing. So encryption would explain technically how can you secure your transactions and privacy, and as well preserve your, for example, national security or whatever, if you are speaking with governments, for instance. So those are a few examples from the projects that we cater after on the pillar of strengthening the internet. And as I told you, we added one other pillar after the growing this and strengthening the internet, how to empower people. And as I mentioned earlier, we care about people, and we believe that the internet evolves about people of different categories. So we decided to concentrate a little bit more in our efforts in the coming few years about people, and how can we raise their capacities and their understandings and their awareness, and raise their awareness as well about their rights as well as responsibilities when they are online, through different kind of measures that we are taking. We care about youth within this category, so we have special programs we introduced for the young generations. Actually, on my way here to Romania, I was reading an article about future jobs, for instance, and it really grasped my attention that even reading about future jobs maybe 5 years ago is totally different than what I have been reading just upon my day of arrival here. As I was reading something that we will be seeing more jobs related to organ creation. So they said that now they are facing minimum number of donors to donate their organs for human to decrease human mortality level and so on. So there will be jobs creating organs, of course robotics and the development and evolvement of robotics, e-waste and recycling, and I don't remember the other one, but it was really the drone, how to manage drone and their work. So, and in countries and in some places drones are not even allowed. So there is a kind of gap between even the level of education that we provide in our schools and in our universities, and the kind of jobs that will be available or could be available in maybe 5 to 10 years. So we try here to bridge the gap through a number of capacity building programs that could help this as we move forward. Why I'm saying this? Because I think everyone, and this is a message that we care to deliver in our presentations, that we need your help, because if we care about people, then we will not be able to do our work without people joining us in our efforts. And this is why we support creating chapters for the Internet Society in the different countries, so that our message can be close to the community in that country, and we can, through the chapter, be able to implement and help the community in this area to develop their internet community more and more. And for that, I think it's time for me to congratulate our colleagues from the Romanian chapter for the establishment of the chapter. I think they are here. I can see Christian standing by. And I think you have a golden opportunity having a chapter. Again, not every country has a chapter. We strive to have chapter in the Arab countries. We are 23 countries registered at the Arab League. Only 9 has chapters. So we are working very hard to try to convince them and explain how the chapter can help them and help us as the global headquarter of the organization to deliver our messages and help the community increase. Something for your consideration as we conclude our talk today. As I mentioned, we are evolving about a number of projects, and this makes us more practical and more close. How can you implement things and how can we collaborate? So for instance, you can decide together with the chapter and with us, of course, that we can start deploying a network in places that doesn't have network, or develop the IXP, for instance, or look after the internet measurement and the shutdowns and the cases and so on and so forth. or go to the strengthening and look for encryption as one of the things. Definitely the IWN could be one of the other items that can help as well. I was supposed to show you some of the training courses, but they are all online, and I think the chapter has a version of what can be provided online free of charge for the different categories of the skills that you may have, whether technical or even non-technical projects. Thank you so much, and pleasure to be here again with you.
Thank you. Any questions? We have a question. So, Nermin, we have a question.
Yeah, sorry. It will be short, just for my curiosity and general culture. So the Internet Society is like a non-governmental organization, correct? I'm just curious, when you said defending the Internet, it raised my attention suddenly because of what's happening right now in the worldwide. I mean, Russia, Ukraine, North Korea, Afghanistan, maybe something in Africa, and who knows how many. And the first thing in a conflict situation, do not say the war or special operation, is the cutoff of the communication. You mentioned also Yemen, also there is hunger and stuff like that. So defending, I'm just curious, okay, we all have to do our part the best we can, but I'm curious because I don't know too much about Internet Society. What kind of power do you have to persuade governments or the Ministry of Telecommunication in each country to actually let the access to the internet to the people of that country? Because as soon as you cut that off for strategical purposes, but you still isolate your population in that country. So it's like a conflict exactly for the purpose of the internet, free for everybody. And at that point, I'm curious, what can Internet Society or even us do when you are in this concrete situation? It's not a story or possibility, it's happening. So I'm just curious, the question is, what can Internet Society do? What kind of levers does it have actually? And what can maybe our branch do in this as network engineers? Okay, encryption is the first thing I can agree with it, but I don't know of any other kind of levers that you may have. So sorry to have such a long.
No, thank you so much for your question, and actually it's timely as you mentioned. So we consider ourselves as neutral consultant. So we don't have leverage to empower something on governments in that case, because these are the entities that will take a decision as such. But what we do and what we do through our communities and our chapters is that we raise awareness bottom up, as well as we advise governments top down. So when we advise governments top down through meetings, so we travel to countries when we used to travel, or we meet people in events as the plenipotentiary here, and we sit with them and we explain how technically this can harm not only the internet and connectivity in that country, but also the economics and the flow of investment in that area. And this is a very, very important point even for you to use the analogy that cutting down the internet is not only a technical decision that they do, but it has economic repercussions that each government would really consider and reconsider, because every government now is looking after foreign direct investment. So if you cut down the internet in one place, definitely there will be no flow of investment to that country for a while, to prove how sustainable the internet is, because everything is depending on the internet. As well, we draft blog posts. We issue official statements regarding incident that took place somewhere, somehow. And they are well recognized by senior officials and senior or influential organizations. So they pick it up and they start to distribute it through their own channels. So our voice is well heard across the layer that we would like to achieve as well. And indirectly, what we do is, as I mentioned, through the training programs that we have, the raising of awareness through a project like the IWN that I mentioned. This is very, very important because we target different again, different layers. So we target senior officials from governments to have these kind of trainings. So we tailor the training for them and their needs and their thinking. And we tailor as well the program for students and for engineers and so on and so forth. So we try to look after these kind of issues because this is very, very crucial. And we have seen the implications as we move along, and we will see it as we move forward as well through the different areas that we can have. Thank you.
Actually, I was talking with Nermin about this subject just before her presentation, and I didn't reach at that point, but I was thinking maybe ISOC, Internet Society, they have grants, and maybe they could support the societies in the target countries where such internet cutoffs are more probably to happen by sponsoring some satellite links. Right now they are readily available, they are not very expensive, and they could keep at least something connected. More than that, they could act like a leverage against government taking such actions, because they would do something harmful without having a full effect. So maybe this is something that you can consider, but probably you will be forced not to label such an action as being against government policy, because otherwise you'll have other problems with governments which tend to be very, very strong, very oppressive, to say so. Okay, I saw another hand, so I think there is one other question. The mic there, please. Nermin, here's your mic.
Hello, Adi here from Positive Newspaper. I've got a simple question. So you said that you represent the Internet Society, which is very good. And one of the guys here asked you about the war situation, but I'm asking you something different. How about the poor communities? Like if you expand the broadband, if you put the routers and whatever, how poor people are going to actually benefit from that if they cannot afford like an iPhone or, I don't know, they have the internet connection, but they don't have the displays. You know what I mean?
Yes, this is the where the community network would play a role. So most of the poor people in poor places wouldn't have available internet connectivity in the first place. So we build the network and we provide seed money and we provide the machinery or the equipment for the network itself, so that those people and communities would have internet connections. And through our website, you can see, and I think Christian, maybe you can share with the group here some of the examples, very, very successful examples in some areas that you won't believe exist in the world in general. But we were able to reach them and build a network there for them. And this network is not, it will be against fees for the sustainability, but very, very incremental fees that they can afford. And the beautiful thing about community network is that they build it themselves. So they feel the belonging to this network. So they feel part of it, and this is how it will be preserved. In addition, as well, we will be raising skills, so they will be loving it more and more, and it will, they will protect it. It will not be, stolen or whatever, because in some places we saw some, incidents of, for example, stealing the copper. So stealing the copper, no internet. So community network would be a solution for your question. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nermin, and thank you the audience for the questions. But please, if you have further questions, look for Nermin in the break, because we are a little bit in delay. So I will rapidly introduce Mr. Fredrik Korsbæk. He will tell us a few things about peering with Amazon Web Services. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, hi, I'm Fredrik Korsbæk. My working title is a Senior Infrastructure Business Developer for IP and Interconnect, but in short, I guess it's a BGP guy. I will talk a little bit about peering with AWS, but also kind of how we're expanding and how we're thinking about a couple of things here in the world. And also to kind of add on to Nermina's talk there, I will talk a little bit about routing security as well, because that's kind of one of my topics. So for the one that doesn't know what Amazon is, that we are an American technology company. I guess our most famous service is the online shopping from Amazon.com. I noticed it was not available in Romania yet, but given how we are expanding in Europe, I'm sure that will be available soon. Web services is another one of our kind of business branches, and the branch I represent. It is a cloud computing company, but more today is more of like an infrastructure company. We provide a multitude of services for essentially anything you need to do in terms of our IT workloads. Prime Video is our content and streaming network, or at least one of them. Today, it's not only streaming other people's content. We are producing a lot of content ourselves. A couple of, Lord of the Rings, for example, I guess is one of the last ones that we're doing. The Boys and the previous Top Gear show nowadays called The Grand Tour. We have Amazon Music since a couple of years ago, Fire tablets, Echo and Alexa, and a whole bunch of things in kind of the larger Amazon family. So today we are a fairly large company. So looking at from a networking perspective, so AS16509 is the AS number that Amazon uses for everything, and it's the AS number that I represent. The first thing that we do is the cloud regions. That's kind of, I guess, what we're famous for and been doing for a couple of years. So today we have 87 availability zones over 27 geographic regions. And we have 21 more announced zones currently out. Some of these are already finished this year, actually, but they are being built in Australia, Canada, India, Israel, New Zealand, Spain, and Switzerland. And this is kind of the home of well-known services such as EC2 and our storage solution called S3 and DynamoDB. Most people in the IT industry is at least vaguely aware what this is. But really today, we have more than 200 more services than these, standard ones. So basically anything you need to do is most likely available in the AWS cloud. So looking at Europe specifically, given that we're here, this is how our region footprint looks like in Europe. So we have up in Sweden, where I'm from, by the way. A region called EU North, EU West in Dublin, EU West 2 in London, Frankfurt, we have EU Central, Paris is EU West, and in Milan we have EU South. And to add on that, we have regions in Bahrain, Dubai these days. We're opening it up here in Israel very soon. And we've been active in South Africa for quite some time in Cape Town. And in Spain, our region should be slated to open about next year. So these are kind of the big cloud regions. They always have at least 3 availability zones. These are fairly big builds that takes years to do. It's typically where we own the land, we own the building, we own the cooling system. It's fairly large projects, these ones. Typically hundreds of people involved with all of these builds. So looking more closer to the end user, so the edge network. So the first thing that people comes to mind when you talk about the edge network is, of course, the CloudFront CDN. Today, this is a multi-petabit scale CDN all over the world. It's available in roughly 400 POPs worldwide. We are growing this, essentially every week, where we deploy new POPs, new locations, and also build out previous POPs. Today, this is used by anything you can imagine, obviously services such as Prime Video, but also more things that you wouldn't perhaps think about, such as Slack, for example, is a quite common thing you would see served from the CloudFront CDN. On top of that, in the edge, we also produce security services such as WAF and Shield and Route 53 DNS service, which is quite commonly used on the internet. We have something we call the acceleration family, which is Global Accelerator, which is essentially an Anycast load balancer. And on the computing side, we've been doing this serverless stuff for quite some time in the CDN POPs. And another thing we do is also called Direct Connect, and this is quite often confused with peering. These things are not really the same thing. So Direct Connect is typically what enterprises want to use when they want a service level agreement, when they want QoS, SLA, and typically lower port speeds such as 1 gig or 10 gig. And it's not available in all POPs, but we have around 150 or so DX POPs available globally. Unfortunately, not Romania. But maybe that will change in the future, who knows. These can either be consumed direct through us, so you just order essentially a direct connect through the AWS portal, but I guess a more common way is actually to consume it through a partner. So it could be common colocation providers, it could be iAccess, or it could be through your telecom provider, where you typically, make it AWS as part of your MPLS network, right? So you can get the AWS virtual network inside your own network. That is, I would say, the typical consumption model for that type of service. And it comes with SLAs, it comes with QS, it comes with MACsec, it comes with a bill as well. So this is, I would say, the preferred way for enterprise companies to consume AWS services. So looking at where we have edge POPs, right? So in Europe, we are, in most countries, there's a couple of left still on the Balkans there where we're not, but we're obviously active looking at essentially every viable market in the world. And that is kind of the job for the people that work with this. So for me, and I have a couple of colleagues here with me as well, where we are looking at the viability of certain markets and where we should be and where we should go and where we shouldn't go and what we shouldn't do, right? So yeah, I believe in 2021 or maybe even 2020, we launched Bucharest, probably one of our smallest POPs in Europe for now. But let's see how everything turns out to do. And it has a little bit to do kind of with the new things that we're doing. So two things I would like to bring up here, which is relevant for ISPs to know about, is two things. So it's what we call the local zones and the wavelength zone. So local zones, as I previously told you, the cloud regions are fairly big builds. These are multi-year projects that takes years to build, and we always build them for the long term, like 15, 20 years worth of line of sight of what we want to do. Local zones is a more flexible solution where we essentially deploy the cloud to the edge. We kind of bring all the services over, given that some of the services rely on our own infrastructure and our own kind of building platform. But things such as EC2 or the storage services such as EBS and container services such as ECS, they are available in these local zones. We started with them, I believe it was 3 years ago, and it was an instant success. We had customers such as Netflix, for example, essentially using up all of it immediately. So we decided on a management level to go big on local zones. You will see where we're building them as well. How this works is that they tie back to a parent region for certain services. So when a customer goes in and wants to buy resources in this, so for example, we're building one in Athens, for example. That one is tied back to Italy. So you log in to essentially the Italy portal, and then you can buy and deploy your services in Athens if you want, or you can do them in Italy, right? And this makes it very easy for customers to build fast and flexible and dynamic solutions on the go without having to really change anything because it's using the Amazon and AWS API and console, and the nomenclature is the same. Wavelength zone, which unfortunately for us is a very bad product name, given that I think most people in this room would associate the term wavelength with DWDM wavelengths. But we didn't get to choose the name, it was someone else, so that's what it's called. Wavelength zone is similar to local zone, but this is where we deploy it together with ISPs, and typically in the 5G networks. So it works as a mobile edge compute inside the 5G aggregator nodes. So we already have this today, built with Verizon, Vodafone, KDDI, Bell, and SK Telecom. So it's fairly big global ISPs. And customers can then choose to, for example, deploy their workloads inside a certain 5G site at certain ISPs. This is great. So I have Samsung here on the slide. They're a public reference. So they are doing autonomous driving stuff with these wavelength zones where they essentially put up listeners in every 5G node inside Verizon's network, and they try to do autonomous driving with that, which I think is pretty cool. This is obviously fairly new. This is not all of this is really fully operational yet, right? We will see where this goes, but it seems, I think it's a pretty cool product, and it will use existing ISP connectivity, of course, because it's deployed inside the ISP's network. So these local zones, I'm not sure if this is visible. Yeah, it's pretty visible on this projector. So all the blue boxes here are where we are currently building the local zones. Unfortunately, not in Romania yet. We'll see. But In Europe, I believe this is 15 or so. So everything from Helsinki down to Athens and all the way back to Lisbon. So we will have a pretty solid footprint, I would say, in Europe. And globally, we're building about 40 or so in the US, essentially every big US city. And Asia Pac, Africa, basically everywhere. And these are slated to be done within the next 24 months. Some of them are already almost done. And this will use existing connectivity for AS16509. So if you're already paired with us and connected with us, this will essentially be opaque to you, which makes things easier. So then a couple of general updates. So the first thing I wanted to bring up is peering concentration. And this is specifically for IX-based peers. It's very likely that we will disconnect IXs with low local growth and low local coverage. IXs in general is our smallest capacity type, but it is the largest one cost-wise. And this is specifically adjusted for the typical low growth of IXPs. And as an update, we are still not doing remote peering at all. We are still not using any route servers anywhere, and we are still a selectively peering network, which means that we are not open peering. We are choosing who we work with, and it's based upon a couple of criteria, right? And typically that it needs to be a certain size for it to make sense. Something we've been working with a lot, specifically in I guess, Central Europe, is event focus. Amazon Prime Video has continued venture to essentially buy rights to sports and had the content acquisition for a couple of years where we bought rights to League One in France, Premier League in the UK, Thursday Night Football in the US, Champions League in the UK and Germany and also Italy, I believe, La Liga in Spain, and many more. We typically are the last ones to know when these deals go through, so we take it from the news, and then we know that we have to be extremely invested in the local markets to make sure that this works. Because these events are typically streamed in 4K, Ultra HD, HDR, which translates into roughly 22 megabit streams. And I can assure you that a lot of people is very interested in these football events or these sport events in general. So typically we have to build out quite a lot when these things happens in the local markets. And on top of that, we also have over-the-top customers, or third-party customers, as we call them, that is doing the same type of thing. So like DAZN, for example, has bought the rights to a couple of sport events. Hulu doing the same. We have HBO as public references that is doing this globally, doing the same thing. So we have like double the pain there from the traffic coming from multiple events at the same time. So this is something that we as business developer has been focusing on a lot and being very involved directly with ISPs because it kind of evolves the peering relationships a little bit where we're not really, just, oh, let's peer, okay, good, and then talk about it in a year. Like in some of these countries, we talk with ISPs every week, like every week, all year round to make sure that these things actually work smoothly. So the relationships are much more advanced these days than they were 10 years ago. I want to talk a little about technology as well. So 400 gig is very interesting technology. We have been supporters for a long time, and we've been using it for a couple of years in the data center already. And even back in 2020, we had our first 400 gig instances available. It was a machine learning instance, but today, essentially any compute instance is available with 400 gig capabilities directly in the instance, which I think is pretty cool. At the hyperscalers such as us, we kind of start from the data center and go out. So all the 400 gig stuff we did in the data center first, and this was actually a long time ago now. Then we moved out to the backbone, and then we kind of finished with the edge. Like people in the edge team, we always get the fun toys the last, right? The data center people gets it first. Since I'm here talking, right, like it's time for us finally to start to do 400 gig migrations. So in 2022 and onwards, more and more sites, roughly around 30% will have 400 gig availability by the end of this year of our 410 global sites or so. And we are working with a multitude of ISPs globally to convert all of our 100 gig peering footprint into 400 gig. And the reason for this is obviously cost saving. Like outside of IXPs, one of the biggest costs for us today is cross connects, obviously. And in certain markets, cross connects are extremely expensive. So moving 4 times 100 gig to a 400 gig is essentially a win-win at all times. Like there's almost no equation where 4 times 100 makes more sense than a single 400. This is a slide that I used from peering days in Greece, where there was a lot of talk about 8-lane 400 gig optics. I don't think there's any vendor here today that will talk about 400 gig, but if any vendor talks with you and they suggest that 8-lane optics is a thing, for example, 400 gig FR8 or 400 gig LR8, it's not going to be a thing. Like, no one is going to buy this stuff. If you buy this stuff, it's going to be a one-way street, right? 4-lane optics and 4-lane technologies is going to be the path forward, because 800 gig is already here, and 800 gig is already going into the data centers today. And this is relying on that we have 4-lane 400 gig technology available. So we will only support 400 gig LR4. We will only support 10-kilometer options, because 2-kilometer options is never going to work when it comes to, there's too much cost by troubleshooting 2-kilometer able links. So the extra cost of 10-kilometer lasers is way smaller at scale than what it is with the troubleshooting cost of 2-kilometer optics. And perhaps not, super interesting here in Romania, but in general, please talk with us about 400 gig enablement. We have a line of sight essentially globally where we are and what we would like to do. So we're actively going to migrate this. And on the back of that's like 10 gig will essentially not be a product in the AWS Edge network anymore for peering. And the reason for this is that our boxes is 1 rack unit pizza boxes, certainly nothing strange. These only have a 400 gig ports available. If we're going to run 10 gig, we need to put in a 10 gig optic in a 400 gig port, essentially meaning sacrificing 390 to 360 gig of potential capacity, given that we will be using QSFP 4 times 10 gig breakouts in that case. Also, 10 gig doesn't really work for us on a sensible scale anyway, because like with these big streaming events, like filling a 10 gig port goes like, you can have 1,000 customers, you can fill it immediately. So 10 gigs is something that essentially be sunset in the AWS Edge network. 100 gig, however, will continue to be the de facto standard, even though that we will sacrifice massive amounts of faceplate density by doing 100 gigs instead of 400 gig. We are interested in hearing if the community is interested in 100 gig LR1, sometimes referred to as single lambda. This is a very cheap 100 gig optics. It's very simple. It's a single laser, right? So instead of 4 lasers, as it is in LR4, it is compatible with 400 gig breakouts, which is great for us because we are big on 400 gig breakouts for sure. Because it's not very likely that we will see breakouts to 100 gig LR4, because that means on the 400 gig side, it will mean 16 lasers. And there is not enough power to power 16 lasers from a QSFP cage. However, there is enough to power 4 lasers. So seeing a lambda 100 gig is something we'd be very interested in. If anyone is interested in, if anyone thinks this is a good idea, we're happy to support it. We know that we are kind of in the forefront here. And I think most other hyperscalers have kind of the same idea. But we obviously want to be backwards compatible with lower speed networks, right? So seeing a lambda might be a thing. Good for cost savings. It is universally acceptable and it is available. But there is some problems with hardware support for the single lambda stuff because you need FEC. So not all the old platforms can actually support it. But we don't know exactly which one those are. So we will work together with vendors and also with ISPs to understand if this might be a future standard. All right, routing security, RPKI, that's kind of my thing. I've been involved with RPKI and routing security community for about 10 years, developing new standards and working with the likes of, for example, Manners to do something better here. Like, just as an example, AWS has about 3.7% of the global IPv4 table, or the global IPv4 addresses available. So obviously our surface area to attacks is massive. And RPKI is one of the tools we have to have at our arsenal to be able to protect our infrastructure and, of course, that in the extent, our customers' infrastructure, right? So today we are dropping RPKI invalids in 100% of our internet edge border. And this is, as I said, about 400 global POPs and probably hundreds of thousands of BGP sessions globally, all do RPKI origin validation. Which means that it doesn't matter if it's a transit, IX, PNI, whatever it is, if it's an invalid prefix, we will drop it. Today, we have roughly 99% of our IP space signed. This converts to roughly covering 122 million IP addresses or so, last time I checked. There is a couple of if you have IP space in Africa, for example, it's not that easy to generate ROAS for your RPKI stuff. So there is some work still to be done there. Today, internally, it's essentially we have a vending machine, right, for IP space. And the vending machine takes care of everything. So any internal teams can just request IP space, and the vending machine or that team makes sure that we have ROAS, we create IRR records, and we get everything updated. So that we don't drop the ball here, right? Because we are a prime target for hijacks, I can assure you that. So we need to not let any stones be unturned. Bring Your Own IP is a service that is, I guess, a bit more popular than we originally thought. Bring Your Own IP is essentially when enterprise wants to bring their own IP addresses, but run the workloads in the cloud instead of on-prem. This has seen a massive uptake the last 2 years. And we decided quite early on that the only way for BOIP to make sense is to have it rely on RPKI, which it does. Like, there are several customers which are trying to push back on this, but there is no way around it. Like, if you want to bring your own IP space, you need ROAS, you need to sign it. Otherwise, we cannot guarantee that any of this stuff works. Today, this is a severity 1 service for us, which means that we have several teams on call. And if anything is wrong here, there will be people walking up in the middle of the night to fix stuff immediately. So we consider this as important service as DNS or DHCP. Like, this is severity 1 service for sure. And I wanted to speak a little bit about where we are going, because we're certainly not done. This is kind of just the start. So one thing that we are absolutely interested in is the delegated RPKI. We do believe that companies that are in the size of us and also companies that are smaller than us probably need to delegate and publicate their own RPKI RPs. So we have done it. It's live under APNIC today. We have an idea of doing this globally for everything. We have IP space in every region. We have ARIN, RIPE, LACNIC, AFRINIC, APNIC. We think that it makes sense for us to kind of own our own publication. We do have a CDN and all that stuff, so it would be sad to not use it, right? So we can rely on all of our infrastructure to publicate our own ROAS. We don't think that the BY process today is good. We think that it must become better. We think that it must be integrated more with RPKI. So we're looking at the upcoming IETF standard called RSC, which should be finalized within hopefully 6 weeks or so. And that means we can change a couple of the processes that we did for BOIP to be fully standardized according to an IETF standard instead of our own hack, actually, because it's not pretty. We have also been working a lot with networks that has invalids to have them fixed. We did reach out to a couple of networks, actually all networks where we saw invalids coming in, which is today actually not that many left. Like when we started a couple of years ago with RPKI, I think there was constantly around 5,000 to 6,000 prefixes that was always invalid. When we started to turn this on, a couple of these networks fixed it very fast, because if you have an invalid prefix, you will not be able to reach any AWS resources, and that is typically not good for anyone. So now, most of the invalids that actually exist in a global routing table today are most likely essentially empty shells. There is no one that takes care of that ISP or that prefixes, and there is no one that answers on the email addresses or the abuse mailbox or the peering DB contact details. They are essentially empty ships. Because we had this on now for 2 years, and if you haven't had routing access to AWS for 2 years, then I think you have bigger problems than this. We're also super happy to work on community projects such as Manners, launched by ISOC here. We were one of the founding members of the Cloud and CDN program. We are happy to continue that path. There is a Manners Plus program that we will actually talk about in 2 weeks in RONOG in Hollywood, I will be there together with the Manners crew and a couple of my friends from other big companies to kind of see how we can bring things forward. Because it's not only about running security these days, it's also about DDoS to some extent, where there is a lot more to be done on an ISP level to kind of fix it. We will also, to everyone's delight, bring RPKI into RFQs and RFPs. Like if you are going to sell a connectivity service or provide connectivity service of any sort to AWS, if you don't have RPKI, you're not a vendor anymore. And this goes from everything from console connections to selling boxes to selling connections. So we've been having some interesting conversations around this, but we have a hard stance on this. Last slide here. If you want to get in touch, you can find me or any of my colleagues in the hallway. We don't have an AWS meeting room, but the bar will function as the AWS meeting room if you want to speak with us. A very common thing we see is that people don't use our regional contact details. They just drop emails to the peering@amazon.com alias. We have not been using that for many years. Just so that people understand, it gets hundreds of sale spam mails per day. So there's no one looking at that. Please get in contact with our local aliases or find us here. We have a technical operations for essentially all technical inquiries around peering, maintenance, or smaller changes you want to do, like renumbering or age changes or anything like that. Peering.to, TO is for technical operations. Everything is obviously in our PeeringDB page, so we would strongly advise people to actually look at that. We also have some self-service troubleshooting things there, such as the NLNOG ring trace, which we think is an excellent product. We're happy to support NLNOG with boxes in every one of our regions, so you can trace route from any AWS region at your own disgrace. We also have something called an EC2 reachability matrix, where you can essentially do a self-test and see if all our regions can reach your end users. We have an external peering portal in the makings. It's launched to a couple of select peers right now as friendly user test. A global launch will follow shortly. And I see that I'm out of time. And I guess we take a question and we take the next speaker.
At least one short question. If not, I have a question. Okay. So actually it's not a question, it's a statement.
Sure.
You, Amazon Web Services, shall have all those services in Romania. That's it.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much for the very, very interesting presentation, really.
Okay, thank you very much.
We have one question.
Hi. Just one question. You mentioned the regions and the countries, etc.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Bülent Sen. I'm from DKIX.
Yes.
Okay. By the way. So the question is, when will Amazon Web Services be available in Turkey?
I can't comment on that.
Okay.
Very short and very efficient answer.
Yes.
Okay. Any other? If not, I would invite Gergana Petrova with a very interesting presentation as well. It's the Romania country report from RIPE NCC.
Okay, thank you. Let me set up my timer because I don't want to speak too long. So hello everybody, I hope that you can hear me. I think I know quite a lot of you, but for the ones who don't know me, my name is Gergana Petrova. Originally, I'm from Bulgaria. I live and work in Amsterdam for RIPE NCC. That I'm going to talk about in the next slide. And the presentation today, is this better? Yes. Okay. Today I'm going to talk about the internet landscape in Romania as we have seen it from our own measurement data and tools that we published in a country report. Let me see this. Okay, so first, very few words about RIPE NCC. Probably most of you have heard it. It's the regional internet registry for Europe, Middle East, and Central Asia. Probably if a lot of you are our members, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that part, the IP block registration, but we also provide a few other services. We have one of the 13 root zone servers, the K-root. We also have a huge global measurement network called RIPE Atlas. Probably some of you have RIPE Atlas probes that helped us collect the data for the country report. We also have a lot of data in platforms such as RIPEStat and RIS. So RIPEStat provides a lot of data on IP addresses, on AS numbers, and in RIS you can find a lot of routing data. RIPE is also involved in public policy discussions on internet governance issues, and a few other things. So the country report project is something that we started a few years ago. We have published 9 so far, and sometimes we focus just on one country. Sometimes we focus on a few countries that are close geographically. As I mentioned, all of the data is available. So when you go to read the report, there are links that can take you to if you're curious and you want to duplicate this data. So have it not from May when we published the report, but from today. You can get the data yourself. We have used a few external sources as well, and those are also specified in the report. So the reason that we do those reports is to inform both the technical communities, but also governments and regulators. The report is written in a very simple language and explains a few technical details that most of you would know, but for example, a person who is doing public policy would probably not be so familiar with. So don't be afraid to actually share it, even with not so technical colleagues. So yeah, as I mentioned, we have published 9 so far. The report that covers Romania also includes Bulgaria and Moldova. So we have analyzed these 3 countries together, which also allowed us to do some country comparisons. And yeah, wanted to mention also that we have translated it in Romanian. So if you go on that link, you would also see the Romanian translation on the website. Okay, so enough about the introduction. I want to get a little bit more about the report itself. And I'm going to start with the challenges because it's easy to get through the challenges first and then go to the good things. So actually, Romania is facing some challenges in the ICT industry that are not really unique to Romania, but more Eastern Europe as a whole. I'm talking about, a lot of ICT workers moving out of the country. There are relatively low levels of internet use compared to the rest of Europe. There is what is really when I'm saying the second bullet point, actually when you look at the third one, there is a huge difference between very high internet use in the cities and very low internet use in the rural areas. So the rural areas is what causes the overall low internet use in the country as a whole. And in addition, the last point is there is a relative lack of e-services, especially from the government. On the more positive side, there is healthy level of market competition, and in Romania, but also in Bulgaria, there is a lot of there are low internet prices and very fast internet speeds. So I have mentioned here, Romania is 10th globally for fixed broadband speeds. And there are a lot of investments made both in infrastructure, but also the government is working on updating regulations. So this is a very positive signal for the future development. So in general, it's a very good market situation. I forgot to mention, you see it in the little bullet point, In Romania, what we also observed is that the incumbent only has about 17% of the market share in Romania, which is really low, and it's a good thing because it speaks to more competition on the market. Okay, so the next few slides are basically graphs from the report. I have not included all of the figures that are included in the report. Go and check it out to see everything. So the first figure shows, I'm not sure if I can point. Yes. So the first figure shows the number of LARs, local internet registries, that we have at RIPE-NCC. In general, so very, very roughly speaking, the more LARs we observe in a certain country, the more diversified the market is, just because that speaks to more ISPs, more networks. But that is not always the case. So a little history, probably most of you know it, but for a few of you. So in 2012 is the year where ICANN distributed the last /8 of undistributed V4 blocks to the 5 RARs. Up until that point, RIPE-NCC had a policy where if you come to us and you say, hey, I need this many IP addresses because I have either the customers right now or I have concrete plans to expand in the future, we would give you whatever number you wanted. In 2012, the policy changed, and we could give only just over 1,000 IP addresses to members who to all members. So that created like a huge scarcity. So you can see how in the next years, especially in Romania, we saw a market increase in the number of LARs. And then in November here, somewhere in 2019, we actually ran out of the of that /8 as well. So we had no more undistributed IP addresses. So you can see. Oh, wait. You can see up to here we had like a huge increase of new LARs, and that is due to the last point, because members were opening multiple LAR accounts just to get the additional 1,000 IP addresses that they could. So again, like generally, it speaks for a more diversified market. We're happy to see, having more LARs, more members in a country, but there are like a few reasons why some of this growth, at least, is artificial. And the other reason is I didn't mention. In the beginning of RIPE-NCC, majority of our members were ISPs, but lately we're seeing a lot more other types of organizations that want to have their own network and want to have their own resources, such as governments, universities, banks, airports, other kinds of businesses. Yeah, you can see that after the peak that happened, after the run out, there is like a certain kind of time where those resources are held, again, due to policy. They need to be held for 2 years, and then a lot of them are transferred, and then the LAR closes down. So this can explain the drop in LARs that we're seeing in Romania in particular. IPv4 holdings over time in the countries. So if we look at what is happening right now, so this is Romania. You can see that in Romania there are almost 9 million IP addresses in the country. For Bulgaria, that's about 5, and in Moldova, it's a lot less. That corresponds roughly to the sizes of the populations in these countries. So for example, in Romania, there is 0.4 IP addresses per person. If you divide it, it's pretty much the same in Bulgaria and Romania. It's 0.5. When we're looking at how this compares with the rest of Europe or the rest of our service region, we see in West Europe you would have a lot more IP addresses per person. So maybe around 1 or maybe 1.5 to 2 IP addresses per person. So proportionally to the size of their population, they have a lot more v4 addresses. Why am I mentioning this? Is a very like a rough calculation, of course in the future, especially with IoT, we're going to need a lot more IP addresses than 1 per person. But this is just like a very quick way to see like how much actually holdings there are in a certain country. I'm going to talk about this bit here in my next slide, so you can see actually after 2000, actually even before 2012, there was quite a lot of collection of v4 addresses in Romania, and then at some point of time they left the country. I'm going to talk about this in my next slide. But then looking at this figure, this shows the biggest holders of v4 addresses. And there is a fair bit of market consolidation for that. So you can see that in Romania there is more than 50% are held just by 3 organizations. Even though, yes, there is a lot, this is a lot of, relatively a lot of consolidation. In other countries that we have analyzed so far, we see a similar picture. Usually there are 2 or 3 organizations that have more than half of all the resources. Yes, so speaking about this little drop in particular here that you see, this is the slide that kind of explains it a little bit. So as you know, there is a very active v4 transfer market, and Romania in particular has been extremely active on it out of all the countries in our service region. So about, you can see over here, these are the, on this side is the outgoing transfers, yeah? So you can see that there are 9 million resources that were exchanged on the Romanian, on the v4 transfer market. You can see that a chunk of them, so this is about 1.5 million of them were just Romania to Romania, so they did stay in the country. But so when you subtract 1.5 and 8, about 7.3 million v4 addresses left the country. Majority of those went to the Middle East, so Saudi Arabia, Iran, the Emirates. From other countries, here you see that Romania did receive a few. So incoming to Romania, they're about 500,000. Yeah, again, this is in our service region, Romania is the country where we have seen the most v4 leaving the country. Okay, so IPv6, a little bit about that. You can see that I'm already on figure 9 because I have skipped a few figures that you're going to find in the report. I've not included him here just because the fact that you have IPv6, that you have holdings, doesn't mean that you're actually doing something with it. For us, it was more interesting to see, you know, how much of the space is actually announced. So here you can see that in Romania and Bulgaria, 44% of the of the v6 blocks that they're holding are announced, and in a figure that I'm not showing here, there is little market consolidation. So the figure that you saw here, only 3, but for v6, there are a lot of organizations that hold, you know, almost equal chunks of v6. So the picture for the v6 holdings is different and looks better distributed than in v4. And the last thing I wanted to point out is if you look here, so this particular graph does not go as far back as 2012, but in 2012, Romania was the world leader in v6 deployment. I think this was mostly due to RCS deploying v6 in time for the world's IPv6 launch in 2012. However, nothing much happened after that. And you can see that since 2017, there has been like a a gradual increase of V6. However, it is still lagging behind the world average. So this is right now. Bulgaria and Moldova doing really bad. Romania is doing much better, but is still behind the world average. This is an interesting graph that we have used a different platform. We have used RIS, the Routing Information Service, that shows connections between networks. So this the paths here, the arrow is the opposite of the traffic flow. So it's the traffic flow is the other way around. So what you see here is that I have not shown here the graphs for Romania, for Bulgaria and Moldova, but when you look at the Romanian one and compare them, we see that there is less prominent clustering of local networks around the larger providers, which is a good thing. It's a healthy market. The largest international providers are Hurricane Electric here and Lumen, with Hurricane Electric having about 4 times more connections than Lumen. And then the local, the Romanian networks that provide connectivity are these big blue ones, the largest ones. I'm not going to read all the names, but yeah, so in general, we see quite a lot of interconnection. The one exception being over here, Vodafone is quite reliant to its parent company's global network, so that's a little bit less interconnections than the rest. And so this next figure lets you see it even in more detail. So again, here you see Vodafone Romania connected with its parent's company network. And the rest, there are a lot of, first of all, there's a variety of upstream providers. And also there are a lot of interconnections and available paths. The largest ones are Hurricane Electric, Lumen, Aurelion, and GTT, the upstream providers. And in general, like having a lot of these connections here, it's a great thing because you don't have single points of failure. If one of your providers, something happens to them, you just route to another. All right, so this graph we obtained with a different source of data. We used RIPE Atlas. I already mentioned it's our global measurement network. We take active measurements with probes that you network operators have helped us deploy in your networks. The probes are either software or physical ones. So what we have done here is we have done requests from the 3 countries, Bulgaria, Moldova, and Romania, and we have checked which K-root locations the requests is going to reach. In the 3 countries, there are 2 K-root instances. One is in Bucharest and the other one is in Sofia. And so when we did our analysis, we found out that majority of the requests to the K-root locations go to Sofia. And then the rest are handled by Frankfurt and Bucharest. So that's the purple and the blue. Going into a little bit more detail, so this gives a view of the individual probes. So for example, if you look at the individual probes here in Moldova, you can see that a lot of them are sending requests to Bucharest. So the blue one here is Bucharest. So in Moldova, they're actually querying the K-root instance in Bucharest. However, strangely, there are probes that are based in Bucharest that are sending queries to the instance in Sofia. So that we found a bit unusual. We think that they are not following the shortest path, but they're instead routed via an exchange point that is abroad, and then that exchange point is the one that sends them, and then via that they go to Sofia instead. And then you can see here that the size of the bubble indicates the round trip time. So the larger the bubble, the slower, the longer time it takes. So you can see, for example, here, this probe that is talking directly to Bucharest, it's very close. So the round trip time is very small, what we want to see. And the ones that are talking to Sofia, the times is larger, so it takes longer. All right, so we also did an imaging of the paths that when we have a request that both the origin and the destination are in the same country, we wanted to see does the path go outside of the country or not? Does the traffic go outside of the country? In general, the picture is very good. So there are countries where a lot of traffic, local traffic actually goes very far internationally, but in all countries, most of traffic stays in the country. And yeah, some of them go to, in the case of Romania, go to Vienna and in London, but very few. All right, so this is the last figure. I'm assuming the room knows what RPKI is, so I'm not going to talk about that, but just wanted to show you the figure of how much of the V4 space in Romania is covered by ROAS. So you can see that for Romania, the figure is about 65% for V4 address space. I don't have here the average for Europe. The reason for that is there is so much variation with how each country is doing that it almost doesn't make sense to speak of an average. So for example, based on the country reports that we did previously, I can tell you that Romania, Bulgaria, and Moldova are doing worse than countries like France, Portugal, or Greece, but they're doing better than countries like Spain or Italy. So yeah, there is room for improvement. The situation is not bad, but yeah, there is room for improvement. V6, not very surprising. Very little of the V6 address space is covered, and probably that has to do with the fact that it's not really used at the moment. Yes. So those are the graphs that I wanted to share with you. Just a quick summary. We're seeing very healthy market competition in Romania, and yeah, some of the lowest access prices and fastest speeds in Europe. As I mentioned, the biggest exporter of V4 address space in our service region. There is a good V6 deployment, but it can be better. Routing is generally optimized, and there is good diversity in international connectivity and multiple interconnections. So overall, the report was very positive. So this is what I wanted to share about the report, and I have two more slides with plugs. I wanted to let you know that our next RIPE meeting is taking place in Belgrade, and of course invite you to come. It's a cheaper hotel than you know, in Amsterdam or Reykjavik or London, so take advantage of it. And it's also close by. And if you absolutely can't go, consider attending online. It's free to register. You can select which sessions you want to attend. You can participate and ask questions yourself or send them to our chat monitors. So yes. And yeah, this is the last thing. I wanted to let you know that we have a NOGS participants survey out. It takes 5 to 7 minutes to fill out. Please help us. We are trying to find out your views on the best channels to stay connected. Different NOGs are doing different things. Some are doing mailing lists, some are doing WhatsApp groups, Telegram groups. So we just wanted to get a feel of yeah, what you guys prefer. Important topics that NOGs that you want to see at NOGs. There are also questions of topics that you're tired and don't want to see at NOGs anymore. And yeah, challenges that prevent you from attending NOG meetings. Well, you're here, so probably You're not very challenged, so thank you for attending. But if there is any challenges that prevent, for example, your colleagues from coming, let us know about that. And this is my presentation. Here you can see my email address. Let me know if you have any questions.
Anybody shooting any question?
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. What happens with those Romanian addresses exported to the Middle East, say to Iran?
Oh, I have no idea what they do with them, but they definitely. So, RIPE-NCC does not have does not participate in the transfer market. We just register, okay, that the resources have changed ownership. What happens with them afterwards? We don't know how they get used.
Mnogo благодаря.
За нищо.
Any other question? If not, I will also make a statement about one of your figures on the screen. Competition, because the incumbent only had the 17%. You said it's an indicator of a very strong competition. Actually, it's so strong that somebody who eats the incumbent's bread has now 63% of the fixed internet access in Romania. So yes, it's a fierce competition in terms of pricing or another infrastructure and so on. But still, we have a very big player. So in terms of concentrating the market, consolidation of the market, we are not away from big surprises here.
Right.
63%. Okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so if there aren't any other questions, thank you very much, Gergana, and I will introduce René Fichtmüller with a speech about flex optics.
So, I have enough power for the next hours, that's perfect. So only me, and then we have lunch, so I try to be a little bit fast. My name is René. Hello. Welcome back to the new normal with in-person meetings. I'm happy about it. So, my name is René. I'm working normally for Flex Optics, but I'm also chairman of the Global NOC Alliance. We are supporting NOCs. And some people have the idea to start a NOC. They're coming to us, asking for money, asking for be a mentor, how it works to organize a NOC Isidore. And we have also a speaker database. We have software like Indico system you can use for a call for paper. You can use it for agenda scheduling Isidore. And it's, I've heard I'm traveling a little bit more like other people, so I'm traveling globally, like Frederick, you also globally, and your colleagues. And I know a lot of people. I'm spending a lot of time with the communities, and I think it's I call it my second family. So I'm talking to Virgil, like I'm talking to my brother, to Frederick when I have some questions, like I'm talking to my uncle or my brother. We are, it's not business related only. We have also like this, what you're doing tonight, what we want to go out for a beer or food or whatever. It's a different kind of living I have when I'm traveling. So I call it my second family, and I've also signed I have a mindset. I don't think in borders. I don't in genders or in colors. I can't explain it I don't care about this. You're living in Africa or whatever. A couple of people doing this in this community. I don't like it. So, and we had. I'm living outside of Berlin. I grew up in eastern part of Germany, so I'm an Eastern boy. And I lived a couple years in GDR times with the Soviet Union soldiers together. We had 3-4 caserns in our city. And I attend also a lot of RONOG meetings, which are organized by RIPE, which happens also in Russia, Belarus, and Kiev also in the past. And since 2014, we had this war on the eastern part, like Luhansk, Donetsk region in Ukraine. And the 24th of February changed a lot of things for myself. So I was waking up, I've seen this in the news, Russian armed forces are invaded on 4 axes Ukraine. And I was preparing my daughter for the kindergarten, and it's the first time for me. She is reaching 2 on the 6th of October. It's a new experience also for me to apologize for things which happens right now, to say, okay, this needs to be part of your life. We need to talk in 5 years or 10 years or whatever, and I need to explain what happens. A friend of mine, and this is also for me a sign how important is internet for us. A friend of mine, Patrick here, posted at Facebook, I got a truck, I have a lot of stuff, humanitarian goods, and it was the 2nd week or 3rd week after the war started. He wanted to drive to Ukraine to handle all these humanitarian goods over to local foundations, associations, and Red Cross people, etc. And he was asking who wants to join. And we have the same friend. It's Wemme Events. It's Falco Wemme. He is owner of a rental company for audio equipment, for events, etc. And I asked for a 2nd truck, so we had 40 tons and the 7.5 trucks, and we loaded everything in with humanitarian goods and was going straight from Berlin, eastern part of Berlin, through Poland to Lemberg, to Lviv, and handled this stuff over. And it was a crazy experience. It was a war zone. Lviv was attacked also on the 24th of February. And when I was back, 2 days later, my wife was sitting next to me on a couch, and we was watching news, and I've seen the attack from the Russian armed forces with the rockets to the airport of Lviv. And I sent 2 days before, I sent a picture of me, a selfie with Patrick. We arrived, we handled everything over to my wife, and she was showing me this picture. It was the same place where the rockets came down on the airport. And after I came back, I scheduled a board meeting with my colleagues, with Nishal, Florence, and Sander and Jan, and shared my experience. The reason was I traveled with a German guy. He was thinking he is traveling in Europe. He needs only his normal personal ID card, so you can travel in Europe with an ID card. But we left Europe to Ukraine. It's different. You need a passport. So we stuck between Poland and Ukraine for a couple of hours. We needed to wait for the head of shift on the Ukrainian side, and he was preparing a paperwork. But at this time, when I'm stuck between the borders in the no man's land, it was 2-3 weeks after the war started. All the people came out of Ukraine with buses, was looking for support and help in Europe, and they had the Red Cross people was organizing a huge tents to give out food and drinks and all this kind of stuff. And it was for me a crazy situation to hear all these crying babies, and you see all the women are coming out of the country. The reason was rules of war in Ukraine started already. It wasn't allowed for the guys to leave the country when you're older, like 18 years, and you have not reached the 60 years old. You need to stay in the country to be ready when someone is giving you a gun. You need to go to the front and need to fight against the other soldiers. And for me, it was a hard situation. It was also, for me, a time, half hour, I was sitting in the truck, I was crying. It was weird. I never, ever wanted to be in such a situation. And I shared with my colleagues and over the year friends all this experience to say we need to do something. We need to organize something. Every one of us is a long time in this community. Every one of us has a lot of contacts, and also with the Global RONOG Alliance, we are the link to the community, and we are the bridge to other communities, and we are conducting network operator group meetings with other network operator group meetings. And we founded this project Keep Ukraine Connected. Why we are doing it? We see it from two perspectives. One from the infrastructure perspective, we need to support, and also from the personal perspective. From the infrastructure perspective, this is a chart from the 24th of February when this Russian armed forces invaded via the 4 axis the Ukrainian part. It's via Chernobyl to Kiev, also attacks in Lviv, Kiev, then Kharkiv region, Donbas region, and Crimea region. And you can see this on the chart, attacks on the Kiev, Kharkiv, Luhansk, Donetsk region, Kherson, Odessa, Mariupol. And in this chart you can see the anomalies in Kharkiv region, like 11 hours from 24th to the 25th of February. Kharkiv region, Odessa, Mariupol, and also Lviv. And this was attacks against this ICT infrastructure of Ukraine. This is a chart how the internet was coming in to Ukraine up to 29th of May. It was a major hub of the internet service providers. Data center IXPs are normally only, and also right now it's Kiev based. Ukraine has 19 IXPs, each of the smallest and medium and large size ISPs are running their own IXP. And then the fibers was going down and the internet traffic to Kherson. It changed after end of May to June. The major hub for this occupied region was Kherson, and they routed the traffic to the eastern part directly to Russia. Then you can see this is from 28th of August. What happens, and you can see these are Luhansk, Donetsk, the old occupied regions, also this Crimea area. This was a new one, and some parts was partisan warfare in a couple of regions, Kharkiv area and Kherson, Mariupol area. And this is what happens in 4 weeks between 28th of August to 28th of September. The Kharkiv region was claimed again back from the Ukrainian armed forces, but you have also attacks here to the Luhansk region and to Kherson region. This is a map we are working with. This map with the Ukrainian Ministry of Digital Transformation to make sure we have sorted out all the equipment they need to rebuild the infrastructures, like fibers and switches and routers. This is the idea behind Keep Ukraine Connected. The idea behind Keep Ukraine Connected is we are network engineers and business development persons, so we know exactly how we can address vendors to say, okay, we need equipment. And right now we have this situation, or we had this situation in Ukraine. It wasn't possible for Ukrainian ISPs to buy stuff outside of Ukraine. The reason is no logistic company, no service from FedEx, no service from UPS, no service from DHL from Europe or US to Ukraine. They stopped it 24th, 25th of February after the war started immediately. So we built up a supply chain between Germany and Ukraine. And this is also some charts from the RIPE-NCC, how many email addresses, IP4 email addresses we have there, and these are the major companies we are supporting right now to rebuild infrastructures. And this is a chart of the probes. You see 23rd, 24th, the slow decline of the uprest probes on the eastern part. It's a chart from Emir from RIPE-NCC, and this is what I mentioned before. Everything is normally focused with the bit networks. This is the IXP chart of from PeeringDB, and this is a data center chart. This is the IXP, and this is a data center chart with a focus also on Kiev and Odessa region. why it's important to support the local community. When we started Keep Ukraine Connected, we had one rule: we don't support the government, we don't ship stuff to the government. We wanted to support our friends, our network engineer friends we know from Enox and we know in person from RIPE meetings and all this kind of stuff. The reason is you have a lot of fibers running through Ukraine to the western part of Europe. And that's the most important thing, to support such companies, and also these companies are supporting us with hardware. To say we are donating hardware, we are shipping this hardware on our own, like with volunteer drivers, or I was driving 4 times to Ukraine right now to rent a truck, pulling everything in and driving through Poland to Ukraine and handle this stuff to our partner debts over. And this is what happens during the time when the Russian armed forces invaded Kiev region. There was going to ISPs and this is a statement of Maxim, like when the Russian armed forces came and said, okay, shut down your infrastructure. And this is crazy. It's, for me, I don't never ever want to be in such a situation. Someone is coming with a gun to me and saying, shut down your infrastructure, or we want to kill you, or I don't know. What is our mission, or what was our mission with the idea to say what I mentioned before? We wanted to be, or we are, the link between the disaster region, like in this case it's Ukraine. Why I'm talking about disaster region, what we have seen during this project to getting access to companies like Cisco, Juniper, Isidra, to ISPs in Germany and US, to content provider Isidra, how you can address this, guys, to make sure you're getting donations like money and also hardware like switches and routers, and how you can build up a supply chain, including, we're talking about dual-use hardware. Normally it's not easy to ship dual-use hardware like switches and router out of Europe immediately to Ukraine or whatever. You need the 2-step export scenery, etc. And with our experience, we are building up also we are working with the European Commission right now together, building up a blueprint for all kinds of disasters. Means how it can be worked out to establish a supply chain to rebuild infrastructures after earthquakes or whatever, or a war or a civil war or whatever. This is how it started. This is, I think, the second week or the second week of the project. It was like I was away from home. I was at Cloudfest in Rust. My wife was at home, and she was, after 2 days or 3 days, she was sending me pictures via WhatsApp and said, okay, I'm really unhappy about this situation right now. Someone, Sander and Jan, was saying, okay, René is driving the first trip with the hardware to Ukraine. You can ship it to René's house. And after a couple of days, my garden was full with pallets of equipment. The first shipment I did, or the first trip I did, it was with 3.5 tons of equipment with switches, routers, access point, antennas, etc. And yeah, I needed to ask neighbors to stay with the car on the street, and I can use your carport or garage, so to store this equipment there. So it's also good to have in such situation like donations, and everything is arriving, and you have this cool, funny stuff at home, and you can play with it, new and used hardware, etc. But you need to have an overview of what you have for equipment. The reason is your partner you're handling everything over needs to know what they can share with the local community and the ISP. So our Sander scripted 8 coordinator. It's for free. It's available at GitHub. Normally, all requesters and donators needs to ping us by email. We created an account with the version 1. Then we pinged the donator or requester back. You can log in, etc. You need to reset your passport, and it was a little bit more workload for us, and said, okay, we need to change it. So Immediately after 2 weeks, we changed our supply and demand tool into version 2 with a website. You can register as a donator and a requester out of the region. A donator is putting in all this information about the hardware you want and you can donate. So we have also in the back end in which warehouse is it right now. We have 2 warehouses right now, one in the western part of Germany, one in Rybnik in Poland from Marcin. It's 1.5 to 2 hours away from the border to Ukraine. And as a requester, you can see how many pieces are offered from this switch or batteries or keyboards or whatever. And how many pieces are already claimed from requesters and how many are received in Lviv or Kiev via our distributor. It works really, really good. The thing is automatic. It's a thing. It's a tool. We have a lot of automatism, but behind we have matching run each week. Means the hardware which is claimed is automatically going with the address and all informations about the delivery address to our partner in Ukraine, to DEPS. They have all this information, which hardware needs to go to Kharkiv, which hardware needs to go to Kherson, etc. And we are working also with our own workflow, but also we have a second workflow in Ukraine established since third week of we are working together with DEPS. DEPS is a distributor. Normally they're selling routers, switches and hardware to the Ukrainian companies. We are shipping with our volunteer drivers, or when I'm driving or colleagues are driving to Ukraine, we are meeting in the DEPS guys in Lviv at the warehouse or in Kiev in the warehouse, and they are doing all stuff. So they have their own call center with 5-6 people. They are available for all requesters out of the VAR zone when they need any equipment. Like right now, our focus is on splicing gear to rebuild the fibers and splicing the fibers and OTDR stuff. And right now, or since beginning, and this is also only internet-based, all partners we have. We found it via Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. All communication is only Telegram, WhatsApp, Trema, Facebook Messenger, LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. We don't have any calls with the ministry. I have calls with the ministry right now every 2 days to see what happens right now, what we need to do. We don't have a call with DEPS or Ukrainian Internet Association. Everything via internet to say, we need and we want to work with you together. And there was happy. All partners was really happy after the war started to have some people there are supporting the Ukraine infrastructures. What I mentioned before, it's a hard situation there with like our best telecom friends or elite friends that are going into the war zones and splicing like fibers in front of a tank or whatever. It's a hard work right now. It's a hard work to rebuild the infrastructure to make sure everyone has access to the internet. This is normally a human right to say, okay, everyone needs to. Frederick, I had a conversation yesterday about normally it needs to be a human right to say everyone needs to have access. But in such cases, it's a little bit difficult to say, okay, before you have access to the internet, we need to rebuild the fibers and splice the fibers. They are destroyed by rockets or bombs or whatever. These are also the guys from Elite. We shipped right now to Ukraine via incoming donations. We got $100,000 donation from SES Astra as an example. We bought immediately Fujikura and Inno instruments, splicing gear. We bought also a lot of OTDR to measure the fiber. This is an example. You can see a soldier with a gun to make sure they are safe when something happens or whatever, and connecting with a fiber, one over the bridge, one part of the city with the other part of the city. I'm happy when I can see such pics. like they're using our equipment to rebuild the infrastructure in Ukraine. These are like from the first deliveries we delivered. We have right now, I think, this is an old thing. We delivered right now 24 or 27 splicers, a lot of OTDR stuff. We got a lot of donations. And this is a chart. Which regions we are supported, like Kiev area, Kharkiv area, Isidore. To say we need also some information for the donors. They're asking us what happens with my equipment I ship to you or to Poland, to Marcin or whatever, and they want to know who received this stuff, Isidro. And also for the future, we have all informations in our database. For the future, we are organizing, when hopefully very, very soon the war is done or whatever, or when it's safe to go to Ukraine, we want to organize a big event, and all these donors can meet also the receivers, Isidro. This is the old amount. I think right now we shipped a lot of stuff the last weeks. Due the rules of war, it's not allowed to talk in a 2 weeks of time frame about delivery, what we shipped. Right now we shipped over 1.5 million of equipment to Ukraine. This is a chart up to the 5th shipment. We had right now 7 shipments, over 3,500 switches we delivered. We shipped also via volunteer drivers to Ukraine to make sure the ISPs and IXPs can rebuild the data centers and all this kind of stuff to make sure the light is up and running in Ukraine. Who is behind? I'm very, very proud about the team. At the beginning, it's Corinne. She is doing a lot of communication and marketing. Then Sander was the first one. Then Sander and Jan, me. And at some point, I was really happy. Natalie joined us, and we was overloaded. So we was completely overloaded. We got like 200, 300 mails the first weeks every day, without everything was coming in Outlook. So, and she was joining us for the team and said, okay guys, stop it. We need to talk. And then we implemented Jira system, Jira ETSM with a backend for ticketing, and also Confluence for knowledge database. We can put in all information, etc. And then we found some additional supporters like Eric Bays. He is doing a lot of things in the Dutch community. Daniel Huben is one of our volunteer drivers and owner of our used warehouses in the western part of Germany. Easter is supporting us in the Czech Republic and then in the southern part. And Marcin is also volunteer driver with a warehouse in Rybnik in Poland. Also thanks to our employees at Six Connect and FlexOptics. So thing is, I got a lot of time. For me, it was possible during the peak time we started with this project to have automatic forwarding my emails to my customer service colleagues. So it was really, really good to work for such companies. You're getting all this time to work on such projects. One thing we are looking also, we have a side project right now. It's called Wi-Fi for schools. Right now we are rebuilding schools with Wi-Fi access points and all this kind of stuff to make sure all schools have access to the internet. We're looking for tablets. The reason is I got a lot of Zoom licenses from Zoom to make sure we can build up a virtual classroom for each of the classes. Was physically in Ukraine before the war together. So all the refugees kids right now in any country in Europe can see all these classmates. So they can have a school together like on a virtual way, but so in physical they're sitting in Ukraine and the refugee is sitting in Italy or whatever. They can use Zoom to join the classroom and to have contact to classmates and also to the teacher. We are looking also for hardware. when you have the possibility to donate hardware like access points, switches, routers, like 1G, 10G PoE switches, I'm happy. You can send us an email, ukraine@nogalliance.org. It's a mailing list for all team players, and everyone can say, okay, this is a link to the aid coordinator. You can put in all your donations you want to do, like hardware or also, right now the Ukrainian came up and saying, okay, after the war we need some manpower. Some people are offering manpower. They are traveling to Ukraine when the war is done and helping to rebuild the infrastructure, as you see. This is what we did in the last months. I think it's a community project. It's from the community for the community, and yeah. When you have any questions.
First, I think we should start with. And René, please convey this reaction to Corinne and to Natalie and your team as a whole. You really deserve it. So I'm really impressed, guys. If you have questions, please.
Cool, food time.
Yeah, probably when compared to the other presentation, of course, this naturally induce more emotions, and people need things to cool off, to cool down. Now, probably there will be such reactions, maybe in the break that is going to come right now. And I'm using this little few seconds to announce you that the champions are waiting for you. The champions being the restaurant at the same level, okay, just around the corner.